Good evening, everybody. Name's Lemuel Sora, and I welcome everybody to another Terminal Thursday. Today we're playing against the person we've played against before. It's my friend over here, Bojack. Bojack, how you doing this evening?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful as well. We also have two other guests. We have Thinking Waffle, one of the soft coders, as well as Gellert, the main man behind everything. How are you too, Boone?
Oh, it's my birthday actually today. Did you guys know that?
Oh damn, birthday stream.
Yeah. Every year it seems to show up this thing, and so yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that.
I mean, it will until the next time Sweden will decide to change its calendar.
Nice. Alright, let's jump straight into it. Bojack, did you decide on which side you want to play today?
Yeah, I'll be playing as the USSR tonight.
Hey, Kalashnikov comrade. I just wanted to tell the guys as well, anyone watching that, of course today we've made an update, and there will be a dev diary coming out with a change log, and today the guys will be showing off some of the brand new stuff that comes with this particular update. And the main theme around this update has been mainly two things that we tried to fix. First and foremost, of course, as we keep balancing the elements in this particular update, we have changed the way alignment is given. So Intel missions no longer give alignment. Alignment instead no longer depends on chance, but is a certainty that you can do in your policies. And then, of course, number two, which I mentioned, is we've done some rebalancing. We fixed some of the bugs. One of those were regarding the achievements on Steam. So now you should be able to do all the achievements.
Nice.
And of course, we've done some more rebalancing of the game to get that solid balance. And you will find the new alignment missions with their appropriate icon under your own theater, your home theater. So North America for the US, and for the Soviets, it's going to be Eastern Europe. And
I actually have a question to that before I forget it. If my capital was to move, would that also move the focuses into the same theater? Or would it stay in the... Alright, so if my...
No.
Okay. Because that's something that was interesting me. But yeah, hey Max, how you doing? We actually pulled a pretty bad card here from me. Because we have we only have 3 of those available to me, but it's still fine. Before we start here, Bojack, do you want to play it just like the last time? We dropped the Illusion Islands or something?
Yeah, let's do that. Until I beat you, we should keep that rule.
Alright,
no, go for the illusions! Oh, victory!
Hoorah, full-scale invasion!
Oh, the British Mandate.
Yeah, we started with Eastern Anatolian claims, which was an interesting choice in my opinion, because it sets his military to 7, whilst it doesn't get him too much for the simple fact he already has, if I'm not wrong, 7 military at the game start, so... Okay.
Yeah, and with this new setup as well, we got to give a shout out to the those who play with the Eyes Only DLC as well, because if you look at it with the new update as well, the missions are going to be a lot more viable for you to use, as the special missions added, of course, some of them require elites. Previously, you had to invest quite a bit of elites to increasing your alignment, and we wanted to expand the number of strategies you could use even there. And of course, having made this change and having reduced the cost of elites, it makes Intel missions more viable, and it also makes them more useful, as you can get better value for each mission you do. So in general, if we are going to be saying a few words about them, yeah, most interests, so finance, people, elites, and military, it will cost you 4 to gain an alignment with those. Government, on the other hand, will cost you 6 to gain an alignment with.
Yeah, I've been looking at it a little bit. I've already realized that whilst basically everything costs some amount of elites, is going to be rather expensive for most of it because you need some other amount of influence to gain alignment. Operation Boomerang. All right, that's pretty early.
Successful.
I'll
Nice
push the
one.
That was successful. Nice. I like it.
Shooting that before. Yeah, Python, the reason why it was mostly changed was probably down to the fact that I keep bitching about the fact that every time I try to do something, like, oh, I tried to do an intelligence mission on 80%, it failed! 6 times in a row! And look at that, I lost the game because of that. Because I physically couldn't get that alignment going. I think it's actually a lot more punishing now for players, because it's so difficult to get certain alignments going. It is still going to be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, if you calculate on it, of course, since it costs 4 and you gain 1 each timeline.
It takes at least 4 timelines until it starts getting actually worthwhile.
Exactly. So after timeline 6, there's no actual value in doing that unless you have another policy that says, remove an alignment and gain victory points. At which point you can trade one for the other.
It actually might still be worthwhile. Like, don't get it wrong here, because it might still be worthwhile. Because if I go ahead and look at the military expansion, it costs finance and government. Let's say I'm playing as America and a lot of money and I have a lot of government, but I need military desperately. It might still be worth because I'm getting a different one. I'm not getting the one that I'm paying. I'm getting something else.
Precisely, and that's exactly what we wanted, because it expands the depth of strategy that you can use when you do it. And in combination with other decisions and in combination with other focuses, you can actually deplete even one almost completely and then restore it by selecting a focus that sets the level. Say, if your focus says set people to 5, then you might want to reduce your people almost down to 0 by doing that, and then resetting it back to 5 by just selecting a focus. So you have a lot more combinations and a lot more strategies that you can use when you look at expanding it. But of course, it also has the added element that if you overuse it now, then you can actually go bust. And if your opponent selects perhaps a focus that grants you extra alignment, then that can also be something you then would like to get rid of.
Yeah, I have to consider right now, because since this has been changed and I haven't looked at it too much. I have to consider how I approach this now. So let me think. I want to have at least 4 more. Here, I would have 1 here. This would need to be moved to 2 or at least 3. And I'll need 1 on this side. I'll get 1 more here through the focus, and I'll get this one a bit later through another policy. If I get lucky, I can also get in the next 2 timelines another focus which boosts this. I'm not saying it out loud because I don't want Bojack and the others to hear what it is. But I still said I need this, so I think the most worthwhile thing for me to do right now is physically to just do this one.
Yeah, of course, there's a value in doing them as early as possible, because every extra timeline that you get, you earn something for that. But of course, it's also about weighing completely how long would this game actually last. Because it might be valuable not to do any of them and just using whatever you have. For example, people or whatever else.
The resources directly.
to use those resources directly to aim for a shorter game.
Just roll a die. No, Lennon, you're doing it wrong. Also, first of all, always press the button. If the button's big, it's shiny, it's red, don't forget, my button's bigger, therefore I have to press it. But, don't roll a dice, because just use the magic 8 ball. That's always right. The magic 8 ball has never failed anyone.
William, by the way, you want to take us through a little bit about the boomerang? We saw that triggering. What actually boomerang was, and why the Soviets?
Yeah, I remember reading about the fact that it was a name tied to a specific operation where the Soviets tricked the CIA by sending a false double agent. Basically, they sent a triple agent, but on purpose. But if he never really betrayed, it was probably just an agent. It's when spying becomes complicated. When you send somebody who will say, I'm betraying the Soviet and I'm going to work for you, but actually he's not. He's poisoning the CIA intelligence, and he's now becoming a CIA operative, and therefore he gains some access, and then he can send them back to the Soviet Union. And therefore he's poisoning the operation, and that restricts the efficiency of some of the spying measures, which is the, let's say, exaggeration we made so we can make a proper effect out of it.
I have to say, just as a joke, every time I listened to and heard that, hey, the Soviets are doing Operation Boomerang, I don't know why, but I'm imagining just a CIA van parked outside of the Kremlin. And then you just see the head of an agent poking out. And like, why is this antenna not working? And then you just see Gorbachev hanging out of his window, throwing a boomerang at the agent, yelling "Niet."
No. It's Khrushchev sending it from the top of the Lenin mausoleum.
And he just throws a boomerang down at the agent and just yells "Niet."
Tavarish.
You made me think of Spiro in Moscow.
I don't know, whenever I heard like these funny names like Operation Whiskey, I can only think of like a bunch of fighter pilots insanely drunk. Like, this sounds just right. Or Operation Cold Feet. It's like, this just sounds really, really great.
I mean, they really got cold on that game.
Oh, it's not even. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, when I heard the word Operation Cold Feet for the first time, I don't know why, but it's like I'm imagining like a super closed down bunker of like the Soviet Union, like in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Siberia. It's completely closed off, and there's like a pretty nice heater in there. And then for some reason, I just see an agent disguised as a plumber with like a fake mustache, just like breaking the plumbing to the heater. So the heater stops working. This is why it's called Operation Cold Feet, because now the heater doesn't work anymore. So all the Soviet rocket agents, or like the commanders who were in charge of the silo, suddenly no longer have a heater and they're freezing.
That's the ultimate act of sabotage for sure.
You have an CIA agent with a fake mustache pretending to be a Spanish plumber in an
the heating system in Yakutsk and see how the people survive.
Yeah, with regards to eyes only, by the way, regarding the question here, yeah, you can. If you play with anyone that has the DLC, you will get access to it right away. It's not, the DLCs here are not pay to win. So in essence, if you just play with anyone that has any of the DLCs, you will get access to them right away. So you can do the same missions. Yeah.
That's an pay to trade, because you need you will need you will need the DLC if you want to train and learn all its secrets before going to multiplayer and avoid being beaten by it.
I mean, here you are saying the game is not pay to win, but then I'm sitting here saying every time I purchase the carrier, I've won the game, so therefore the game is pay to win.
That's very Reagan view.
Now this is cash money.
So you're going to be hoarding carriers in this game.
You know, I'm gonna do the ultimate 10D chess move. I'm gonna take over Iran. I'm gonna put a carrier into the Caspian Sea. I'm gonna drive it all the way up onto the borders, like the northwest border that the Caspian Sea has. Then I'm gonna put rolls under it and drive it straight into Moscow. They're never gonna see it coming. Like, this is the ultimate 10D chess move.
This is not that far from some of the outrageous planning that went through the desks at the Cold War at the Pentagon, you know?
I'm fully aware that is like ideas that people have had. I mean, it hasn't been that long since people were considering, like, hey, why shouldn't we go ahead and like do this as well? Also, this is what I talked about earlier, free money.
It seems a little bit. Oh yeah, that's cool. It seems a little bit too late to beat someone to Iran, though. I see Bojack.
No, we can always get that later.
Secured Iran there.
We can always
Yeah,
save
a little
that.
bit.
Iran, that sounds good. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, communist governor Iran has never failed. How could that ever go wrong?
The U.S. disarms.
Interesting.
I mean, the more I disarm North America, the more carriers I have available. Again, 10D chess.
Is that the Chinese guy?
Like, exactly, just like chat. What do you mean communism never failed? Communism never failed. Here's the thing, though. We could have also just worked without it. I mean, would you like to just give this whole democracy thing a good rub? I mean, it worked for us for like the last 200 years. Want to try? Come on.
Oh,
I know you want to. Just come over here. I'll teach you how to do an election.
Germans teaching people how to do elections. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I mean, it's when you fail, you have to repass the test, and then you get the better grade.
I mean, the German person trying to teach an election just looks at any Russian election in the future. Yeah, like, everything's gonna be fine.
No, but I mean, precisely.
Elections.
That's exactly what I mean, right? Germans should know better than anyone about I mean, experience, right?
Yeah. I mean, you only learn from mistakes.
Well, hopefully other people's mistakes, you know. By the way, I got a question about how, why you have extra decimals in your deployment. You wanna show what that is all about? Deployment cost there.
Oh, so the way it works here is in the menu you can activate precise deployment cost. I keep I keep it active all the time because it will tell me when I jump into the next area of cost. So if I go and deploy anywhere, let's say I'm hovering here, the deployment cost in this case says it's perfectly free. If I click over on the Kerguelen Islands, it says 2.5. It always rounds down to the next smallest amount, which means if it says 2.95, I still only pay 2. But I know that this is about to become free, which means the next region is definitely going to be free. Or in this case, a little bit cheaper because it uses a different route. But I can tell exactly, like, alright, this is 3.30, which means if I take the next region up here, this would then become 4. And this one would become 5, and this would become 6, because I know exactly what the prior province costs. This also allows me to more correctly manage when I should be using my cruisers or not, because if I have a region which costs 0.8, and then it's free to deploy next month, then I don't need to deploy it within that region. Let's just see if I can see it here. Yeah, so for instance, here right now it says this is free, this is free. And if this right down here was 0.95 or 1.95, I deploy before, like the case is over here, I can only deploy before, and this becomes 0.85, which means this is going to become free. I might have probably butchered, so let me try this again. So, if I check the deployment cost to deploy right here, the deployment cost in the sea is 1.85. And the prior province costs 1. Which means if I deploy a cruiser in a province which is adjacent to it, which in this case I can't do because there's an undeployable province here. But if I was to deploy it in a province before, then the cost of deploying over here gets reduced by 1. But it also reduces the cost downstream by 1, which means the cost here is going to be 0.85, which again gets rounded down to 0. So that I can... So for me it's more easier if I know all these numbers, if I can see the numbers actively running around my head. So I can more properly manage. You don't need to do this, but it helps a lot. It seriously helps a lot.
Yeah, so you do it for the plan.
Yeah, it just helps me with the planning. It's an optional thing. You don't need to. But boy, I recommend doing it. I highly recommend you should be doing this. Like, go out right now, activate that, open your game. French Polynesian zone. What do you want in French Polynesia?
It's beautiful this time of year.
Yeah, but here's your problem.
Tribal objects to open a new museum. It's the request of the anthropology department of the KGB.
Of course, of course. How could I have forgotten about the anthropology department of the KGB? Such an important operation.
Are they digging up cold cases?
You start digging in the place where no man has digged before. Dig, dig, dig. I don't know why, just because you said that now, I'm just imagining like the wastelands in the middle of nowhere, and I just see like a bunch of KGB agents shooting the ground with their Kalashnikovs. Like, it has to be here, it has to be here, just keep shooting. Eventually we will find it.
So what's the benefit of picking Italian communists? Or what was your strategy behind that?
Gains 1 elite.
Yeah, about that, if I can do it. Come on, can I do reports live on air like that?
Say again? Reports on?
Yeah, I just did a test, and basically with the new policies, the AI activated them so much that it killed itself.
Oh.
I wondered how do they have the resources to activate them so often? Well, it's simple. They activated them, they dropped to 0. They spent VPs to regain some resources, reactivated them, and then lost.
Oh boy, that sounds like a lot of AI fun.
Well, we'll have to look at that. Maybe there's a tiny bug somewhere.
There's probably
And
a bug
so,
somewhere in there.
Yeah, it lost 0 VP versus -4, so they activated reduction policy. Well, they traded VP for resources 4 times, and then they lost.
Yeah,
By the way,
well,
it's out of people management, in fact.
So Bojack, when selecting the Italian Communist Party, what was the main thing there? Was it to flip Italy because you get that regardless of how much prior influence is there?
He doesn't even know.
No, exactly.
Like,
That's
I'm
because
just
this is my
telling
game
you
plan.
immediately.
I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing.
You should avoid the Italian Communist Party if you're playing the Soviet Union. Specifically because it gives me free elites, which is a resource which is basically impossible for me to achieve. And for the fact that just give me free elites, it's something the Soviet player wants to avoid, unless he wants to actively fight in Europe. In which case there's more Western and Eastern Europe focuses that you would have picked.
No, I mean it can be beneficial because of the fact that you do flip. So depending on.
Yeah, but this is
even
what I
if
mean
you
with
have-
when you're fighting in Europe, when it's actually contested. But Italy was not contested. We were in no situation in the combat in Western Europe. And when I pulled out, it was even less worthwhile. Because Europe is, like Western Europe, is always a profitable situation for the Americans. It's not a situation where the Soviets can do anything. Because the Soviets is where the majority of their power comes from. is from the sheer land armies they can field, because they have so many tanks. But since I'm playing as America, I have so many planes and so many ships. Yeah, sure, he could maybe take a bit of mainland Europe, but then he just gets bogged down because of the sheer amount of planes that I'm gonna throw at him.
Yeah, I think generally I just haven't played enough to really think that deeply about strategy. I'm just still in the phase.
It's all right.
You'll get there. You'll get there. That's the point.
It's all right. We're here. We can help you out.
These games are very educational, certainly.
I mean, we're here. If you just say out loud what you're thinking in terms of strategy, we can pitch in with ideas. So because when you begin as the Soviet Union, you have a lot of focused forces in one essential place in Eastern Europe. The benefit of that, of course, is that you have everything in one place. But that's also the drawback. You have everything in one place.
Or maybe it's the opposite way.
Yeah. So basically, what you want to be looking at is where to essentially go. So you want to be gauging, is this going to be a long game or a short game to begin with? Are we going to be, how do I want to win? Because depending on what you choose, then you can have one of different outcomes. As you go first with the Soviet Union, you have the first turn advantage, and that's a really good thing to have. And you can lose the first turn advantage if you gain more VP than the US.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if you have the same or you're tied, you're gonna continue to go first. Now, this is an advantage actually for doing the space race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's one thing I picked up in our last game, to avoid basically uselessly adding victory points.
Unless you're gonna rush and you know that you're gonna be picking up a lot of points, at which point it can be worthwhile doing so.
You want to be the person that has first pick on everything, because then you have the initiative. In my case, I like to play reactive, which means I just let my enemy take first hand, usually. Because it's for the long run. If you play for the short game, you want to be the person that always has first grab, and hopefully gets all the victory points, which means you can eventually, let's say you have managed to get a lead of like 50 victory points. You can then just go ahead like, boys, 50 victory points, so you just immediately go in and push the red button. If you have high people support, you have a lot of nukes, you maybe even have the submarine ICBM nukes. Or even the MIRV if you went really crazy with that. You can have enough nuking to destroy the entirety of the enemy's influence, which means those 40 influence points are just given to you by random provinces that you own all around the world.
An interesting thing when both disarm East Asia is that you will actually gain peace, and China will become neutral, which it has become now.
Removes the entire point of this focus. It's like, hey boys, we should probably work on that whole peace in China, and then just see like the Soviets and the Americans coming together like, peace? Yeah, peace.
Yeah, that's peace.
You see like Chamberlain in his grave, he's like, thumbs up, boys, peace in our time. Good job, we've done well.
It depends, Python, I see a question about the space race. It depends on how you handle military now, because it's different due to the alignment.
So, here's actually something that you're getting wrong. Python, the space race was never the meta, but it was one of the easiest things to achieve. If you get better at the game, you're most likely going to switch and no longer use the space race as your victory. It's actually going to be the nuke game that is going to be your main strategy, because the way the nukes work is, let's basically start with the space race. The way you start with the space race is that if you win the space race, it's a full victory. But if you lose the space race, it's a full loss. If you win with the nuclear victory, it's a full win. But if you lose with the nuclear condition, then it's a draw. Which means whatever happens, the nuclear option is actually beneficial in both cases. Because it can never actually be your loss, unless you really fuck it up. In which case, it's still might be better to just stay in the middle territory and go with the nuclear option. If you really put your effort into going with the nuclear option, getting all of that stuff going, only getting a few victory points for, or like a few early levels of the space race for the intelligence, then you can just basically drop the intelligence system, get all of your people alignment, get a crap ton of planes and submarines up, rush all the way to MIRVs, and when the MIRVs are out, before the enemy even has the option to get to 71 or 76, due to the fact that you have MIRVs and ICBM attachments and ballistic missile components and the ballistic submarine missiles, if you're always on top of this, you get so many extra nukes above your enemy, you can just rush them down, and there's nothing they can do. Because your objective then is only going to be simple. Have like a fighter here, a fighter there, a fighter there, and then just have random provinces all around the world with one influence. Because it's going to try to bomb those.
Yeah, and then it will depend on where you have actually placed your influence. And if you have placed your influence in faraway places, like for example, the US has put a lot in South America and has put a lot in the Pacific, it might be that the Soviets have put so much into the space race that they actually can't afford to have anything that reaches there. And at that point, obviously, they're going to lose. And it can be the same with the Soviets on the flip side with the US. If the US invested a lot in the space race and hasn't kept up in the nuclear race, you're going to get somewhat of the same, especially if the Soviets have put a lot into sub-Saharan Africa, into the Middle East, and South Asia.
Yeah, because the way it basically works is, you might remember this from card games. You basically have a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3 system. In this case, people would often say that the space race would be the tier 1 victory condition, because it's the easiest, the simplest, and the most reliable to achieve. But the nuclear option always hard counters the space race. If you know the enemy is going for the space race, he does not have the resources to also focus on the nukes. Which means you can basically have a deterrent, because if you're not doing anything in the space race, the enemy knows that you're doing the nuclear option. Which means if the enemy doesn't see anything in the space race show up for the first 4 timelines, he knows he's done for. He knows there's nothing coming back from him. Because he's gonna get nuked to oblivion. And that's when you have to play your cards right, make sure that you have a lot of influence all around the world. Which is why you often see me just spread like cancer, where I just have this weird line going from Mauritania, Senegal, all the way over to Ethiopia as America or as the Soviet Union. I just want to cover as much of the globe as possible and pick as long as a focus as possible, just so I can have everything everywhere all the time.
So those leaders in China, what's the point of them?
Use them. So use a character. I would recommend in this instance that you use Dung. Because they will still continue to fight for you. So just favor Dung, select him, and then favor him.
Yeah, I think I
despite
chose today.
You've chosen one, yeah.
Yeah.
They will continue to fight, and sometimes they will pop up with decisions. As long as Mao is still has power and is still alive, you haven't recruited him on the map, so he can't die. He will lose 1 power each. But when you play in East Asia, then the generals will be available, and they can grant you different decisions. And they will continue fighting, even though your units are not fighting. They will be fighting, you know. So they
Right.
will be fighting for you.
Yeah, I think I chose Sude.
Yeah.
No idea how to pronounce it.
Jude, yeah.
Jude.
Yeah, he's good. He starts a little bit in the middle of China, and then moves. Peng starts up in the north and moves downwards. They have different styles. They do different things.
You have chosen wisely.
Nice.
The difficult one is when you reach Taiwan. If you reach it too early, then you can't do an invasion. So you want to get some foothold in Taiwan as soon as possible. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for you to reach.
Ayo, hold up. This is mine. You know, what if the Soviets said, we want Taiwan, but America said, haha, airplane goes brr. Try me. Now what fun thing could I deploy here? Nuclear bomber, no. What's the worst thing I could throw at you here? How many turns do I have?
Don't throw things, please.
Yeah, that's a good point, Python. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. That's the joke. They did very much have them. That's the point. And you know, who knows if we put them out or not? I mean, do you want to try it out?
You know, the U.S. strategy you're playing now, Lem, in East Asia, that was pretty much somewhat of the preferred strategy of the nationalist Chinese at the time. Getting the U.S. to help them out, and buying some time, basically. It's very nice, Bojack. So you're starting. You see the generals now are acting, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good because I don't have a lot of money, so it's
What's
nice
money?
to have them do my work for me.
What's money?
It's finance.
What's that? Never heard of. Everything's mined anyway, so
Yeah.
why would I need
Yeah,
that?
we don't really need it in Russia.
I mean, here's the thing. You need it, you just don't have it.
Yeah, so we just say we don't need it.
Are you paying wages in turnips?
Yeah.
Good turnips. Lem, you lost northern Japan.
Yeah, I'm very much aware, but I'm busy. Actually, I didn't lose it. Here's the thing. I don't care about it right now.
You
Because,
just lost the control there. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I could just always put something there again. It's not like it matters too much. Like, it's still mine, so...
I mean, of course, Bojack, the drawback of not putting Mao out on the map is, of course, that
He's
you
one of the
can't
strongest
use his
characters.
abilities.
Yeah. This is... It's one of the strongest abilities.
Yeah. I'm just gonna.
I'm not saying it out loud, but he keeps forgetting to actually
I don't
use
think I
the
can do a
ability
lot.
from Ho Chi Minh, because Ho Chi Minh's ability is ridiculously strong. I don't know why he's not using it.
Sure, you can. You can
So
also
good.
move in with other units from East Asia as well. I mean Eastern Europe. I mean,
Right.
you can use your army commands and just move them in.
Okay.
So you just select an army command, and then you see the blinking theater name. You just click that, and you can see where they can move. So you can just simply move in units, and it doesn't cost you any extra people to do so, because this is a focus. You're moving from a non-focus into a focus.
So I'm reading them here real quick. Ho Chi Minh has the Pillar of Eastern Asia, which means you pay one influence to place one. No, you pay one power to place one influence in any province within the Indian theater, which is a really strong ability, like seriously strong.
He no longer has support, but instead he has a different ability now. He's one of the pillars of communism in South Asia, and it has a special ability. For one power, you get to put out one influence wherever you choose.
Ah, Python, you ruined it. I was just talking about that quietly, so I was like, I don't want him to know. I specifically muted myself so he doesn't hear everything. He's talking about the fact that yeah, don't look at Asia, don't look at Ho Chi Minh. That's not bad.
Wow, this is a really interesting set.
Can't wait for next week. I mean, I would be down if you want to have a game next week, Python. Ooh, this is a fun set. That's a very fun set. Oh, yes. So this one is decent, not great. That one's okay-ish. I don't need any of this right now, though. This one's bad. This one's good. This one's perfect. Alright, what are we doing? The Mau Mau Rebels.
Mau Mau.
Hey,
Oh,
La
you're gonna
Mau.
have Kimati.
Disarmament.
Schemati time? Usually the funniest time when you can use Schemati is always when you're sitting there like, hey, Schemati's a great guy, right? And you've suddenly realized, oh, you just disarmed, which means you can use his ability again. Oh, never mind, you just disarmed again, which means you can use his ability again. And you can just keep having fun with him, because his power just never goes away.
Well, you know, unless he slips in the shower. There are mighty slippery showers in
Oh
Kenya.
no! How could that happen? Anyway, let's go back to Africa.
So I gained one influence in sub-Saharan Africa. So he has one power, but he's in a, well, sort of USA favored zone.
You gain one power for each. You gain one influence for each power he has. It's basically impossible for you to get there, and I recommend not wasting too much of of your finance because you don't have too much. Instead, just deploy him because he's an ability where he can create a war zone and he gets a bit of power. Just don't use him until the focus is over.
What do you mean by that? Don't use him till the focus is over?
So he has normal abilities like Consolidate and such, which means you pay one of his power to gain one influence in that region. So just deploy him, use his ability to create a war zone, but then don't use the other abilities.
Right. So
Yeah, and now he should have abilities where you can create a war zone. There it is. Rebellion. And this is what I mean, because if you now had, let's say, another focus, where both players again go ahead and disarm, you can actually do this again and do another rebellion.
Another thing you could have done is if you had an army command there or two, what you could have
Yeah,
done
but
is
that's
boost
relatively
his power
expensive.
even further.
This is what I said you want to
Yeah,
avoid
it
because
depends
you,
on at which point in the game. But if
In this
there
situation-
are other,
it's impossible because I own the Suez, which means his deployment cost is absurdly
yeah,
high.
in this game it would be absurd.
Like
but
deploying in
if things
Ethiopia
would-
for him is to finance.
Yeah.
That's just not really affordable.
Nothing is affordable to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but the Mau Mau Rebellion doesn't just happen the first time. So if things would have been different in a different game, where you might have had access through the Suez, or you might have created, you might have created, for example, a convoy line through Turkey, and you might have had another convoying surface fleet in Egypt. Then deploying there would have been almost free. So then deploying a unit there for 1, and then getting Kimati 3 extra power, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that was actually the first thing I looked at, but as Lem said, it's impossible for me at this time.
It costs too much.
Yeah, because Lem has already blocked off the Suez. He went the British way.
No, I went the Danish way. Basically, like, hey, did you pay your tolls yet?
The enemy have launched their first object into space.
Or I'm saying it again. I'm saying it quietly this time, and please don't say anything in chat about it. I specifically went ahead and I didn't pick that up. I could have picked it up, but now I have the victory point advantage, which means next timeline I'm gonna have first turn, which is what I'm gonna try to keep for the rest of the game. I'm looking around right now what
I'm trying
he's
to
doing.
do a false flag in Somalia, but tried it 4 times.
You're not supposed to publicly announce that. We are
Yeah, you
doing
should-
secret.
Within the stars what'll happen, so.
Where
You
were you
should-
trying to do it?
Somalia.
Somalia.
Yeah.
You should try to keep quiet because I was actually sitting here pondering, like, what the fuck is this guy doing right now? I don't see anything happening on the screen. So I muted myself on Discord so you don't hear it, and I was pondering to the chat, like, what is he up to? Because I looked around the map. I saw the chat log is empty, and I was like, what could he be up to? Maybe he's preparing for an invasion an offensive in Europe. Maybe he's trying something in Asia. He hasn't touched Ho Chi Minh. He's not doing anything with Kamati. So I was just like pondering, what could he be up to? You want to
I like how
avoid
you
speaking.
think I have all these clever plans.
Never underestimate your enemy. Never underestimate your enemy. You learn it the hard way.
Yes, a plan, a cunning plan, like a fox graduated to the university.
The false flag for you would be really good in Iran because you can then build even cheaper units through Iran, and since you're building a road down, many make the mistake of building the road downstream and not upstream in the logistics line.
Oh yeah, something I can actually tell you because I forgot to mention. You have cruisers. I recommend if you go to your main theater, place one in the Caucasian zone and place one in Iran. That cuts back so much on your deployment cost when you want to go for Africa and the Middle East. Because you can actually deploy cruisers in the Caucasian zone, and I can't get there.
Wait, so you reduce... So basically you use ekranoplanes to ship stuff through the Caspian Sea.
Yeah, the Soviets
Yeah.
did. Yeah, exactly.
Like
So
you just
now
put
I
it...
have
If you-
domination in Iran. Would I still
Yeah.
need to do that?
Yes,
Yeah,
because
now
Iran
you know if you
doesn't...
go.
Iran doesn't give you the convoying ability. The cruiser specifically still gives you the convoying ability, which means if you place that cruiser into the Caucasian zone and into Iran, whilst it is cheaper to deploy in territories down the line, the more if you have enough influence, you still want to get the cruiser because the cruiser puts the cost for this region to 0. So this basically means it doesn't add anything for the movement from the last province to your province.
Yeah, but it depends on what you want to do with the surface fleets, because at the same time, it will occupy a surface fleet, right? So depending on what you want to do with that, now you have, since you have 5, you are reducing cost considerably. But depending on what you want to do with your surface fleets, building up that logistics line upstream, it means that you already get that benefit. And now if you already have a deployment cost of 1 in Iran and close by, you can actually start building a logistics line down through the Middle East into sub-Saharan Africa. But of
You know,
course, there are different ways you can go about doing that. We mentioned 2. One is doing it by influence and using intel. Another one is doing it with units, and then you don't have to have full influence. And there are combinations of both of these as well. And then of course there's one where you just use units and basically with an army command create a logistics line, or you go through Turkey instead and then skip Iran, because that's another one you can build. You can build through Turkey, down through the Levantian zone, and then down into Egypt.
You know, Gellert, it could be interesting to have a tutorial scenario about that.
Yeah, it would be interesting indeed.
Uh,
I would love to have that. That would be amazing.
because
should-
I
we should-
don't
we should-
think that enough players know about how to do supply chain.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely need one about that. It's also a lot of fun to do what Lem is about to do now.
Oh, sorry, I've been keeping myself mostly muted. I'm not talking too much because the word. Again, if I want to mention this because I haven't mentioned this on stream yet. If you hear any sound in the background, I'm very sorry. Whilst it is 8 in the evening, I still have workers over because for some reason they didn't bother to show up early enough. But yeah, I'm right now considering because, like I explained to Bojack, never underestimate your enemy. I always have more plans. So right now, one of my plans dropped in the water. And I'm reconsidering what I should put there instead as another plan, as backup. So I'm just considering my options. Yeah. Alright, so this is what they can't hear. I'm gonna just explain what I have. So my first and main plan is gonna go for the space race victory again. I'm gonna keep the nuclear option in my second hand. My first plan right now to get as much influence as I can in this feeder area, because you can see here I've basically blocked off the entirety of Egypt already. So my plan is to get majority of Africa and Southern America. So even if he goes for the nuclear option, I'm gonna have plenty of stuff, which is why I'm happy about the fact that he's taking all these long focus turns here, like these long timelines on the focuses. In Asia, I'm keeping myself ready. I protected this already. I can always retake northern eastern Japan via southwestern Japan. I'm going to take Taiwan when he's not looking, and then maybe even start a mainland invasion whenever we get to the next Asia focus. I don't have any plans for the Pacific. Probably just going to keep the sub around. Nothing for India is planned. I'm definitely not going to do a mainland invasion, but I will, as soon as he tries to move into France, I'll put Charles de Gaulle up and blow him out of the water. And if he tries to move, I can at any point just activate the British line, which resets the territory. But I'm going to do this anyway, just so I can get the military alignment. So that is the current game plan.
The regime was certainly not pro-French, but they were actually banning the Communist Party, and so it created some weird tensions, because they were like, yeah, we all like the Soviet Union for the liberation of people, anti-colonialism, all of that, but we don't want the Communist Party. And
I mean,
they also claimed to be socialist and tried to do some stuff, but they also were, of course, a single-party state, because they banned the communists, but also all the party of opposition in the FLN, and then they, how can I say that? Yeah, they were also against communist atheism, because they would realize that would put a lot of the population against them, and if they would do that, they would just lose power. And that's just Algeria. There are a bunch of that kind of stuff elsewhere in Africa too. In Egypt mostly. I actually recently, the course of a guy named Henri Laurence on the evolution of the Arab world in the 20th century restarted in the Collège de France. If you know French, it's a bit lengthy, but I do recommend it.
Wonderful.
Yes. And so recently he was talking about the Suez Crisis.
And that's a weird one, because in that, the Soviets and the US end up on the same side against the British. Yeah.
What's really weirder in that the result, the nationalization of the canal, I thought that it was really a seizure of acid. Of colonial imperialism, but actually the corporation managing the canal, even if it was in French and English hands, it was incorporated in Egypt. So it was under Egyptian law. So there are some leverage. The Egyptians already had some leverage over it just because of that. The French couldn't say, hey, but that's illegal in French law. But yeah, no, it's an Egyptian corporation.
You mean the British? You mean the British? Not the French.
Oh no, the French and the British, because don't forget that there were capitals on both sides. And not only that, but the Egyptians could have waited 8 years, and they would have got the company back anyway. That was already planned. So they were just taking some advantage. Yeah, that's always forgotten, because you focus on the event instead of looking at what the plan was, and otherwise it would have been in Egyptian hands in the early 1960s. In addition to that, the British already froze Egyptian assets in London. I think when NASA took over or something like that.
I believe it was when he took over.
And therefore,
well, there's definitely a lot of chat going on, so I just quickly go over what I'm doing here. So my plan again here is not actually to focus to Europe at all. I just want to make him think I'm focusing on Europe a little bit. I could actually delay here, which costs me 2 people to get 2 elites, but I don't need elites anymore. That was the last timeline where you really needed elites. So what instead I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this focus, then I'm going to blow up the goal, gain the influence in the territory, then consolidate up here in Sweden, Norway, and place something there. Or maybe even put a single tank there and go into mismanagement. I'll have to see with that, but I definitely want to get the goal. Like, that's a no-brainer. So let's go with the British line.
For longer. That's actually my guess as why they would go this far instead of just making an agreement with Egypt or try to count them down. I've actually no proof about that, but I'm really wondering why they would go so far as try to invade Egypt against the United States by lying to everybody else with the help of Israel. For me, that's the only explanation possible.
Alright, let's keep it here. I think you have been talking long enough about the Suez now. We have the game running. I was actually could say that's an interesting option. Okay.
Oh, there have been developments in the meantime. I think the interesting part about the Suez in particular is that it really is a linchpin in the Middle East, no matter how you put it. And then getting that, I think, when you play as the Allies, it's a really an important element. Lem, by the way, take us through what has happened in Eastern Europe.
So if you mean Western Europe, so what happened here is my plan was to pick up the British line for the simple fact I just wanted some military alignment. I didn't actually expect him to stay strong, which means I was able to just freely gain a crap ton of influence in the area. So Norway, Svaland, and Iceland easily just turned into my sphere, and I basically just won Europe with that one move there. So that is all that's been happening.
You mean because what you will do now is
Europe is won.
NATO?
Can you just be quiet for one reason? It's not my turn. It doesn't even matter if I launch NATO or not. Like, Europe has been won at this point. Seriously, Gellert, just like before you start spilling things out, maybe just think about the fact that this is an active game. Like, we're currently playing against each other.
Yeah. So Bojack, what I was trying to say there is, I think what also Lem was trying to say is in Western Europe, you really have to always consider the Allies, well, the US essentially. If you get to a position where the US can get so much influence that they can turn all of these, Iceland, Svalbard, Norway, Portugal, France, all of them are really close to control. So if they get to a position where they can get control of those, then launching NATO means that all of those can be turned into solid dominations.
Yeah.
And so in Western Europe, you want to be really careful about what Lem just mentioned, because if you lose 3 or 4 of those, that actually means if the US flips 3 or 4, those will now go from 3 influence to 5 influence right away. That means that if you get 4 of them, the US will freely get 8 influence.
One moment.
That's 8 victory
One moment.
points in the
I
end.
need a. Where is Zare? I'm not getting that right now. Where is that province? Is that an African province?
Zaire. Yeah, it is. It's in sub-Saharan Africa.
Oh, it's the Congo.
In the middle.
Congo.
Yeah.
It's the Congo territory. Yeah, no, I don't give a shit about that province. I was like, hey, we're doing something in Europe, and the game's like, hey, lose 1 influence in the Congo. I'm like, what? I wasn't fully sure what it wanted from me here, but apparently I lose an influence in the Congo. I mean, sure, I can lose an influence in the Congo. I don't give a damn.
Yay, I have +1 influence in the Congo.
Yeah, but I gain an extra turn, which you don't gain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a good trade-off for you to basically abandon some French position in the Congo in order to gain an extra turn. It can be valuable. At the same time, so coming back to Western Europe, because of course if they flip for regions to control, then when NATO is launched, they will all go to domination from 3 to 5. And that means for each one, you will get 2 extra influence, and that means 2 victory points at the end of the game. So that's 8 basically free influence.
So in Western Europe, you have to understand that arming and disarming is very important to remind yourself. If you want to go ahead and arm, you should only arm if the enemy actually already has a region under full control. If I go ahead and do the game plan that I've done right here, where, hey, there's like random provinces all around Europe which you don't own, but I do, it can so quickly turn the entire game upside down, because you see all the regions right here, right now, right? So, yeah, this is basically the perfect scenario for any America player. There's not much you can do about this anymore, and I own Europe now. So when you're playing in Europe, in 90% of the cases, you want to disarm, no matter what you're doing. If you're gonna go for like a full-scale invasion, you know, like, I'm gonna have air supremacy. The Americans have already lost most of their ships, which means deployment here is not gonna be possible. He just disarmed last timeline or something, or there's nothing available in general. Then you can consider going for a full-scale invasion. But even then, if you decide to disarm, if you decide to arm and I disarm, I might get to a point where I can just deploy 4 influence, so I just deploy 4 influence around, which means 4 regions, just like it happens right now. A bunch of regions just turned over and became controlled for me, which means I can just click a button and everything's mine. Which means even if you now go for full-scale invasion, it's going to take you 6 to 7 turns more to flip all the regions into your favor. Which is the huge problem of this.
Well, it also depends on the situation, of course, and here.
And basically, just so you understand, this is why it's bad. But before I do this, I'm going to, let's see, which button am I going to press?
Sounds like that wall is coming down.
Yeah, the thing is, so upstairs in the bathroom, I asked them to install a heater, because the bathroom's always really cold, and, you know, when you're just done showering or taking a bath, you want to actually have a heater there. The thing which annoys me is the fact that I already threw them out, but for some reason, the others said, like, no, they should stay and finish this, because they don't want them to come back tomorrow. Even though it's 9 in the evening, and they're making such a large amount of noise, that even the neighbors have already come over and say, like, hey, can you just turn it down?
Wow, really?
It's 9 in the evening, and they're actually making a lot of mess, which is just, like, not okay.
Waging war in Western Europe, if we on that subject, where there is an issue there, because as the Soviet Union, you begin, so you actually have the means to pressure if you choose yourself to initiate in Western Europe. You can pressure the U.S. units that start there from the beginning, and because you also have quite a bit of people, it means you have the ability to push ahead.
Yeah. So to quickly explain to others what I've done here. So I was considering whether or not I'm going to immediately press the create NATO button, because both sides have the ability to block one policy from the other. And since he knew, because Gellert has been blabbering about it, since he knew that my plan is to press the NATO button, it might have been possible for Bojack to do his own intelligence mission, which blocks my policy. I didn't know about this, which means even though I didn't actually need to do this policy, which gave me more civilian rights, I needed to do something to check whether or not the next policy is going to get blocked.
Yep.
So my only option here was... So my only
that
option here
would've been
was
really
to do
good
this
idea.
one, otherwise it
Yeah,
would have just been
so I
bad.
was basically sneaking a strategy to you. You could have blocked NATO, or you could have blocked the one he just did.
Yes,
but-
the thing is, I specifically
Exactly.
did the expansion of the civil rights policies, because if you actually did do the blocker, it would have blocked the civil rights, which would have been quite bad, but it wouldn't have been as bad as if I lost NATO. Because I did not want to lose NATO, because you see how much influence I just gained in Western Europe. Like, this is ridiculous amounts of influence in Western Europe. Like, this is almost 20 points.
So to clarify that, when you get into this position, where you pretty much are convinced that your opponent now has, when your opponent says, I have Western Europe now, haha, that's when you do the blocker.
Yeah,
And
this is
then-
why I don't do it. This is why I got so angry at Gellert for like, oh, he's gonna do this now. And I'm like, can you just be quiet? Like, it's not fun if you just tell him everything. He has to learn something.
Yes, but so I was trying to give you a hint, but we are trying to help you, of course, develop some strategies. And one of the main elements here is, of course, that you can use this as for the future to think about that. Well, Intel has the ability to provide these sort of tools, and blocking a policy, the next policy is an important element to do.
I would have actually
Yeah,
told him
the-
about this, but I would have told him after I've done the policy.
Well, it's informative either way. So,
Yeah.
so but which there's a special intel operation then.
Yeah, there's a
Do a
special
block policy.
intel operation that, if successful, blocks the next enemy next enemy policy. Just like at the beginning of the game, you decide to immediately do boomerang, which blocks the next 9 turns worth of intelligence missions. Which means for the next 9 turns, I was unable to do any intelligence because you immediately did boomerang.
Yeah, it was a genius play to play boomerang right at the beginning
No,
there.
actually, bad idea. It's
Well,
a really bad idea.
it is pretty good.
No,
It is pretty
because the problem is the first 3 timelines you only build up, which means intelligence is not something that's going to come into effect, and you want to have it later. Let's say I'm pulling a big card. So let's say, for instance, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do the Warsaw Pact because something happened. I lost a bunch of influence, or I took over the Aleutian Islands and East Berlin, and now I have control there. But I've also lost some influence in other provinces because the Americans were placing some influence around my land. But now I'm gonna do the Warsaw Pact, and I know I'm gonna do it in, let's say, 3 turns from now. Which means now I can play boomerang, and I can ensure that he cannot do the blocker anytime soon. Which means now that I blocked his blocker, I can also do a sneak attack into Europe and do the Warsaw Pact without him being able to interfere into any of it. I can also do more sneaky operations like deploying units here or there without running into any situations where it's like, oh, he's gonna do recon and find it. Or just like the things that you often tend to do. It's like, I'm gonna put 1 plane on the Aleutian Islands, I'm gonna put 2 planes on the Aleutian Islands, I'm gonna put 3 planes on the Aleutian Islands. If you put down the blocker that the enemy can't do intelligence, then he doesn't know if this is happening, because he cannot physically check. So this is
Precisely.
a trump card. You want to not use this too early, because this is available until the end of the game. You can just play it whenever, but you only have it once. So this is a trump card which you don't ever want to throw out.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
But it really depends on when you use it and how you use it. And so in the beginning, if you are going to use it, you should use it for a particular advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
But you
um,
need to
that's
have
the
something
first
to
thing
use it
in
then.
defense, so-
yeah, one of those, for example, is if you want to go for the carriers. If you would have gone for the carriers in East Asia and not disarmed, it would have been a good use of making use of boomerang, as you played it early there, to prepare for destroying the carriers in East Asia. Because that would have meant he could have not seen that you were moving in units, sneaking them past, because he would have not used any intel, and then attack the carriers in East Asia, because those are high-value targets.
Yeah, but at this point I can say it would have probably worked with most players, but in my case that's not working. Because I already played in the way, if I know my enemy is arming, and I have a carrier anywhere close, I immediately pull that carrier away. I never leave carriers exposed, Unless I know it's going to be safe. So if I see like, oh, he just disarmed and the carrier's in a region which I own, I know I'm not going to move the carrier away. Even if there's a sub right next to it, I know I don't need to move this. This is fine. This is completely okay.
I mean, carriers are really valuable for sure.
Yeah, sure. But
once they're lost,
so are subs.
Yeah. You can withdraw that unit if you want to back into Soviet territory.
Yes, so you see the unit is outlined. Since it wasn't in a war zone, it's not destroyed. It's just forced to retreat. You can select the unit and move it just like a normal unit around now. In which case, it just moves back into the northwestern Russian territory. If you don't give an order, it just gets returned to your command reserve.
Right.
Which is,
okay.
Yeah, which is like, for instance, if we fight in China, in mainland China, now the only province where a unit would be destroyed is in Outer Mongolia, because everything else is a neutral zone. If you fight with an enemy in a neutral zone, you don't get the full victory points. You only get half of it, but the unit doesn't get destroyed. Which is why it's actually often preferable if you have your destroyers, or even in this case, the carriers out in the open. Because if you attack with a submarine into a carrier, and the carrier is not in a war zone, the carrier doesn't get destroyed. The carrier is fine. I can just retreat it, or I can just pull it out completely. Which is why it's not often a great way of just moving in and saying like, I'm gonna destroy your carrier. Yeah, sure, you're gonna force it to retreat, but that's as far as it goes. Let's see. Middle East, Western Europe, Eastern Europe. Well, what card is he going to pick? What ticking bomb is he going to blow up now? Is there going to be a conflict in Europe? Is there going to be a conflict in the Middle East? Politics of poverty. What do you mean you're poor?
That's a good one.
Disarmament.
So it wouldn't make sense to disarm right now because Lem controls this region.
It would make sense because you only have 2 units in the region right now. And if you disarm, I can just deploy more influence. It says how much I can deploy, and anything right now is something that matters for me because I don't have full control over Canaries or over Ireland. And if you gave me, let's say in this case, 3 points, I could just completely take over Italy or even Yugoslavia, and you would have nothing you can do about it.
There is another reason why you would disarm, and that is so you can get peace in Greece, because you can always come back into Greece.
Yeah.
And having peace there means that if he would attack your units, since that's not controlled, they wouldn't create a war zone. So it means you can be fairly safer with your unit not becoming destroyed.
I will say though, for next time, before moving units to Greece, you should consider it, because now you move them in and just pull them out, which doesn't make too much sense.
Yeah, because you knew if you look at the last turn that you have on each timeline, it can be valuable to look at what focus are you going to pick after that turn. So here.
Oftentimes it's important to just like, right now I already know what is the thing that I'm going to pick next. I already know from the get-go what I'm picking. So you should always keep that in mind, which, like I explained before, I have multiple paths, because I didn't know what you were going to pick. Like, I had an idea before what I'm going to do, and that changes based on the fact that you picked the politics of poverty, because I don't know what the politics of poverty was an option. It could have been Kalashnikov comrades. It could have also been war reparations. I didn't know.
Yeah, but strategy-wise, I think also I understand what you want to achieve, and you wanted to secure that last chink in the armor, getting Greece, and I think that's a good strategy. It's a good idea. and now you can essentially consider, well, what is my opponent going to be doing? Look at that.
I mean, that was kind of a weird move. Alright, for one victory, you just went for one influence with false flag. I mean, sure. It's not something that I would do, but I guess. If that's what the Soviet uses to keep their boats floating, I guess that's where you can put your resources. Usually false flag is meant for regions which are hard to reach for you, or which you need to keep control no matter what. Italy was not a contested zone, nor is it in any way right now strategically worth it. So there was not a lot of reasons to do a false flag.
Well, it depends on what you have available. If you, so for example, if you would have had access to Tito, it would have been good to set Yugoslavia to 5, because Tito has an ability where he can reduce the influence in his home region of Yugoslavia, and by 1, and then he can deploy 2 freely in Western Europe. So,
he also pays
example,
he pays 1 power and 1 influence, and he can deploy 2 influence.
So false flag in this case, for example, in Yugoslavia, if you would have Tito, would have been useful there. Also, Italian Corsican zone can be good if you look at building a logistics line. So maybe that's what you're aiming at. Then,
but even then, you should go ahead and just move a tank there, because you have tanks right now in Poland and Ukraine until you pull all of those out. And since you own Yugoslavia, with 1 click they can instantly move into Italy. Since you can walk through Yugoslavia and just go straight into the next zone. I mean, I'm actually, right now, because most of the chat's made by Python, I'm actually considering how the game next week is also going to turn out, because I'm pretty sure Python's come up with some nice ideas as well.
Well, look at that project. Now you secured the chink in the armor. So that's a good step forward. Now comes the Yugoslav zone. And you see, when you do false flag, for each consecutive false flag, the percentage chance of succeeding that timeline gets a little bit less. But then it gets back to the same overall line when you start a new timeline.
You know what? That sounds like fun. Ooh. Don't mind if I do. I will take myself some free government. It's a better idea with the new game mechanics. I'm also... The thing is, Python, I didn't know that we were actually been playing on this already, because Gellert has been working on this most of the day. So I wasn't sure if this one is going to be available for the game or not. So I didn't actually plan anything. I'm just like throwing plans out. And
yeah,
here actually just...
Yeah, we've been working on it, but we didn't... I didn't roll it out for Lem to pre-play. So, yeah.
I knew that there was something in this regards on the line, but I wasn't sure with this. Let's see. Buttons. This looks like a button. There we go. Also, again, thank you for all the free government.
Felt like a bad idea to disarm here.
I mean, I've disarmed my territory, so it's not that bad. Also, just because I can, say hey to Benjurino. Say bye to Benjurino. Say hi to a war zone. So, for you to understand what I've just done, I just set the Levantian zone into a war zone. So, if the region has influence on your side, and then I use a leader in that region to give me influence, it automatically creates a war zone. So since the region was at 5 Soviet support and I got myself 1 American support, it creates a war zone. It's the same thing as that if I have a region which has a tank in it, and you suddenly gain control over it, it will immediately go into a war zone as well. So based on what the region is before from before, it will create war zones, or it might not create war zones.
Yeah, also, with regards to this focus, the Treaty of Gellert, we should also explain that here, depending on, you can actually, as the US, control, if you do disarmament like Lem did, you can control how much government you actually get. Because if you take away, if you put influence, friendly influence from disarmament into the East German Baltic zone, you get less.
Because, no, the government is applied before.
Oh, it's applied before.
The government is applied before. The government is applied and then applies my influence.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, what you do get though is that you get the ability to, you get the ability to choke off the, Now you get the ability to choke off the logistics by putting out. That's why you put it out there. Yeah. Yeah, wrong on me. Yeah. No, you're right. The government is applied before.
Imagine the developer makes a mistake by the mechanics. Oof. Big oof. Very big oof.
No. The text says so, right? You gain government and then you gain influence.
Still, very big oof.
Yeah.
German political machine. Did I hear German reunification? Did somebody say East and West should be one?
Can't imagine.
You know what problem I have right now? I wanted to have some fun. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to do anything in West Eastern Europe. I'm going to go and buy myself a nice leader. Then I remembered. Damn it. This is the second timeline. I already bought all the leaders. There's only the goal. And, you know, well, the Lantian zone, but that's an event leader. So now here's the question, what do I do now?
Here there are opportunities for you as well, Bojack. In particular, since really focus has just been put on very few theaters.
What do I do? What do I do? I'm actually gonna use this button for once. I have physically nothing I can do. I don't have any leaders that I want to use because the goal already has only one thing that he can do, and that's consolidate, but I already have maximum influence, so I keep him as a roadblock instead.
Yeah, and you basically used up all of your remaining good options.
Oh no, I
But
have
then-
plenty of good options. It's just like they're not worthwhile right now. They're more worth it if I just wait longer.
Yeah.
They gain worth if I just play for more time.
Oh, that's cool.
Hmm.
All those vast expanses in the Middle East are waiting for Soviet domination.
You mean American liberty? I'm seeing a lot of I'm seeing a lot of freedom in the Middle East right now. You know, the
also,
soldiers
South
weren't
Asia.
too happy about that whole going to the Middle East, but then I explained to them that they have a lot of oil, and then they were very, very encouraged to go down there.
So, talk us through your strategy here after this election.
Considerations. You know what? I think I'm gonna go with this one.
Oh, there we are.
Disarmament.
Did I miss anything?
No. I was considering which path I go.
So you selected Island of Freedom. Gain
Yeah.
1 influence in Eastern Europe for each influence above. 2 in West Berlin.
Yep.
This can be quite devastating.
That was loud. That was a lot of disarmament. The goddamn ears. Alright, Stalin, you're... No, sorry, it's not Stalin anymore. When did Stalin die again?
53.
Yeah, he's dead. I actually forgot. Who's in charge right now?
Khrushchev.
It's Khrushchev? Alright. Picks up the red phone. Hey, Khrushchev, your move.
Assassinate. No. You don't need to.
Give him the soap. Khrushchev, the soap. Give him the soap.
At this, so at this point, Bojack, how do you reckon strategically what would be better? Is it to assassinate, or is it to deploy army command or fighter command, or what are you thinking?
Well, I think if I would deploy army command there, that he would just yeah, that probably isn't even possible right now if there's a leader there, right?
Yeah, no, but you can deploy
Next
elsewhere.
to there. Like, yeah, exactly.
So for example, not even deploy next to it. You can deploy even further away. Like, yeah, for example,
You could
you
do.
don't even because you can travel through your own territory and you can still attack into East German zone.
Just put him into Siberia. It's gonna be fine.
No.
Just move your entire, just like you did in World War II. Take everything and just move it into the Euro region, and then just give us the rest. It's that easy.
So for example, if you look at the Urals, you can move from the Urals through Moscow and into where Imran is currently, if you use an army command. But you can also bomb him out.
Hey, Bokian.
You can use a bomber command. There are ways of getting rid of it.
I still have the Warsaw Pact policy. Would that make any kind of sense?
Well, if you
No, because that's when you control it. You have to control
exactly. So if you use false flag and then you do Warsaw Pact,
Ah, right. Yeah.
then you can restore everything to become yours again.
So I am able to attack a zone with a leader in it. Without
Yes,
losing
it
units.
costs you reduce the leader's power by once if you attack him.
Right.
Right now, it's not a huge deal because he only has one, so you would kill him. But it would remove him from the game. It's just down to the fact that, do you want to do it? What game is this? This is Terminal Conflict, my boy. This is Terminal Conflict. Right now I'm playing against Bojack right here. He's currently on the other side. Usually the game doesn't have communications for multiplayer. But specifically for these games I sit with them in the voice chat, so... It's a fun thing. Right now I'm playing as America. You can see my capital is over here. Oh. You actually shot him? He gave him the soap. You don't give Nagy the soap. That's not cool. Is this like Hoi? No, this is nothing like Hoi. This is nothing like Hoi. This is basically a Cold War strategy game. And the plan behind it is relatively simple. There's multiple victory conditions. Up here is either if you have more victory points than the enemy. It's a minor victory for both factions if everybody survives. If I win the space race, that's the 3 main victory conditions. There's also other victory conditions like he's dead. That's a very valid victory condition. If he's fucking dead, then well, cave's gone. Well, it's a war zone.
It also has an interesting, some other interesting mechanics. This is turn-based rather than tick-based, which Hearts of Iron is.
Yeah.
So this is turn-based, which means that you, as in the Cold War, you take turns into escalating into conflict. So.
Oh, hold on! You deployed something there. Nice. I just started 2 tank commands.
Ah.
This is a thing which I can explain, which Python did the same mistake at the beginning. Do not deploy on the front line. If you want to deploy a unit, put it at least 1 province behind, because in the 1 turn it takes for until they're actually ready, I can just instantly destroy that. Which is why you should, if you're playing as America, never deploy in the northern countries, because the Russians can see that and they can just move in and kill you.
Yeah.
Are there economic things?
So
yes,
is there
down here in the...
anything- So
down
right
here in
now
the
you're
corner.
engaged. I don't have anything deployed. Is there anything I could do?
So here's the thing, since I can't create more war zones, in this case it would be fine to deploy in Central Russia. Just understand, since I'm engaged and not in, I'm only in engaged and not in reorganization. If you were to attack me, it does not actually destroy my unit.
Yeah, I would have to do another attack. Though.
You would need to 2 more attacks, but by that point, I would be back in full strength point. Yes, there is an economy section in this. You can see down here I have my, in this case, just my my influence points. In this case, I have some influence over the financial system, the people, elites, the military, and the government. At the bottom here, see how much I gained each timeline. The game is set into 10 timelines. The timelines are, as you can see up here, 46, 51, 56, 61, 66, 71, 76, and then until 1991, which is the last timeline. So there's a lot of management in the economy. Early game, the first 2 or 3 timelines, you basically only build up income. I started with a really low income of only 1 finance and 1 people support, which is not a lot, but you see, even though we are only in the 3rd timeline, I already have a lot to work with, and I'm gaining a crap ton of resources. I want to keep this at level, because if I go to the max or the low or the bottom for everything, then I get mismanagement events. Basically, people are pissed that I'm not dealing with these issues, or that I'm letting these issues get out of control. And right now I'm just having a war in Eastern Europe over Poland with Mr. Russia over here.
Yeah, I mean,
Because-
the goal here is to gain enough domestic interests, so that's the economy play, to build up sort of an economic engine if you're aiming for long-term play, because you convert then your economic engine into influence and power on the map. And if you're
the bark of the corner dogs!
Yeah, mismanagement.
And if you aim for a short game, that is, you aim to attack, and instead of building up an economy, you aim to rush the opponent and try to go that way, or maybe try to go for an early nuclear war, then, because in this game you have the ability to just wipe the map with nuclear weapons.
You see at the top it says Doomsday, and I actually just physically have the launch button at the bottom. I can only launch if the Doomsday is actually at maximum, which is basically like, he just did something really bad, I did something really bad, which puts the Doomsday all the way to the top, or there's a random event which just says like, hey, puts Doomsday to max. Like, if, for instance, if I hover over this focus over here, it says right there. No, which one is it? Hold on, I have to check real quick. There was one which... Oh yeah, here it is. Which actually interact with Doomsday. And there's actually a few which says, like, straight up, like, hey, just, like, blow up the world. So, the way the game is focused is around these theater focuses. Each timeline, there's 9 available. A few of them are American, a few of them are Soviets. And in turn, we pick which one we want to do. He can't see what mine are. For him, it just says how many turns we have during this. And where it is. So he can see that this is a North America focus for 5 turns, but he doesn't have the other information. He doesn't see the name, he doesn't see what it does, just like I can't see what his focuses do. And if he selects one, then the theater named at the top is the theater which is going to be the active theater, and that's where we're going to do our combat and everything, if we fight at all. Because we can just opt to not fight anyway. We can go there, but we just don't need to fight. And then we stay in that feeder for as many turns as it is, which means he gets 7 turns, I get 7 turns on a way around, and then it just gets handed over to me, and I can pick another focus. And eventually, it just goes to the next timeline, it rolls new focuses, and continue.
Yes, and so the resources you gather, they can do different things. So, for example, you can use elites to do intelligence, you can use military to do research, So all of the interests that you gather there, you can actually make use of, but you don't want to totally empty the interests of each different domestic faction holder, because if you do, then what will happen is you will start going to mismanagement. And in the bottom left, you see the 5 different ones. It's finance, people,
Explain that.
elites, military, and government.
Yeah. Basically, what you have to keep in mind is that the principle of mismanagement is just like, let's say my finance interest goes all the way to the bottom. It's basically just like all the holders of property, or all the people who have any amount of cash, just got really pissed at me. Like, why am I not dealing with this? Or like, an economic crisis just happened and everybody blames me because I'm not dealing with this properly. So it just happens that way, and nobody's bothering to deal with it. Which is why things are happening that way.
They will take things into their own hands.
Yeah.
And the same way, if you give them all that they want, then
they
what
just
ends up happening is
they consider you unnecessary, and they will just try to replace you. You can mismanage a few times, which means if I was to fill this up to the max or get it empty all the way, I'll get an event where it says like, hey, boys, something's happening, this and this is going on, but we can save it. Like, we've had words just, oh, the capitalists are getting a bit rallied up. Doesn't matter. Send in the secret police. They're gonna deal with this real quick. Or they're just gonna pay him off to just go away for a moment. And you can only do this so often, because eventually it's gonna be so severe that they're gonna say like, I don't want to get paid off. I want this to be bloody fixed. Which means eventually you can't continue.
What happened to West Berlin, by the way? Did we miss anything there?
No, quite. Remember, Gellert, keep it low.
Oh, there's a standoff now.
Keep it low. So here, Bokin, you have to understand that, and the curse of this game, Bojack is not that well known to the game. He's not that great yet. He's only just started playing, which is why we're having open multiplayer. So whenever he does a mistake, I will exploit it, of course, but afterwards I'll explain what he's done wrong. And Gellert has basically been using my side of the screen constantly to just say like, oh yeah, he's doing this right now. I'm like, I'm doing a move on my screen which Bokian can't see, and Gellert's like, yeah, he's gonna do this now. I'm like, can you be quiet? Yeah. He doesn't know about this. Just shut up and let me play. I can bolster about it when I'm done.
You didn't hear anything from me. Hey, you didn't hear?
But yeah, right now in the early stages of the game, the idea is basically just to gain influence, which you can see anything that's blue on the map is what I own, or basically what I control, and everything that's red is territory that he controls, or in this case, orange. So you see he has a lot of influence over Eastern Europe and a bit over the Middle East, but I basically control everything else. India is basically neutral. Africa's rather neutral. It's split between both of us. But we can always just play the cards differently. What I'm doing right now is I can
in this game, which happened at the beginning when both the US.
Yeah, but the Asia card in general isn't that neutral, because he has some provinces, I have some territory, so.
Yeah, and then there's a middle zone which is neutral, where none of you have any influence. So basically, what ended up happening there is you just agreed to disagree. Oh, that's a beautiful game, by the way, Democracy 4, and our colleagues who've made that have done a fantastic job with that as well.
Yeah, I played it a bit. Yeah, it's nice.
Oh yeah, Bokin, you have to understand that the person that's actually in chat here with us, Gellert, he's the maker of this game. And you might also not notice, but my name is also in the credit list. I am a person that has helped making this game. I've got rather inactive as of late because things have been popping up, specifically like more things that need to be repaired, and the fact that I'm trying to get myself a proper job and such, but I'm still active in helping this game. So.
Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of Strategy Mill. So, I mean, I started making games professionally 14 years ago. So, worked with a lot of different types of games, and mostly focused on strategy, but also developed other things in tech and fintech and legal tech, and worked in the different tech sectors. But mainly my passion has been in creating games and creating systems. So I might have worked on some of the titles you mentioned, since many of us in the strategy community, we've worked with Paradox, of course, and since you were asking about Hearts of Iron 4, for sure. And also part of the developer of this game is Leonard Berg, whom you probably also know, worked with Paradox as well. He's the main developer for BL Logic, that developed Arsenal of Democracy, among others, and was also behind a cancelled title by Paradox later called East vs. West.
I made another mistake. Oh, what's this?
It's a bomber. Really shitty text-based game that is all of... Here's the thing. Many people don't even have that to their name, so that's already an achievement. So you can consider that a good achievement. Ooh, boys!
Yeah, absolutely.
Zero Doomsday, time to press this bubble.
And besides, many people started with modding, like text game modding back in the, when I was starting out back in the early 90s. There were a lot of text-based games, and many of them are still quite popular.
I mean, I've just been showing you one earlier that you didn't know that I've been still actively playing. But yeah, I also got into this with just basically starting to mod. I've been helping with Road to 6, and then we got involved in this a little bit. Been having some fun. And that's how I also ended up here. Time to buy more equipment. I need more carriers.
No, you don't.
Yes. I mean, you know how the question is. Would you like more carriers? And you know the answer. Yes.
Well, there's no limit to the number of carriers for you.
I mean, how many
You'll
carriers do I
always need
want?
more carriers.
Obviously, the answer is also yes.
Don't forget that if you just mentioned carriers, it may not carry aircraft.
Yeah.
Like disease carriers.
No, not something like that. I don't use dirty bombs. I clean my hand before I start throwing shit.
Sounds good.
Don't say that, Boken. How should we?
No, you're definitely not. It's again, you have to understand that during game development, you'll improve a lot. At the beginning, you might think like I have no clue what I'm doing. So one of the ways I actually got into modding myself was just playing. You play the game, you get to a point where you realize you know all the mechanics. Which means if you now open the game in a text editor or in a modder file, just like I did with Hoi, you'll quickly realize, like, this makes sense. You understand it just by the simple fact. No, Bokin, that's not appropriate. Please leave that out. But no, you'll just learn by the simple fact that this makes sense. Like, I played Road to 56 and I realized really quickly, like, boys, there's something broken here. This doesn't make sense. Or this makes sense and I can just move it around a little bit to my own, to the way I like it. And it's how most people start, with modding. And also modding is not that difficult.
You really want me to participate in the conversation, right?
No, you don't need to. You can. I'm not opposing it, but you're not required to.
Just looking for me. Well, that's a hippie tactic. The top brass in Washington will never allow it. So stop talking, writing nonsense, and please finance my nuclear propelled carrier strategic bomber. And yes, they tried. Well, they tried both separately, hopefully. And once they planned one, and it was basically too dangerous. Again, hopefully it didn't go through.
I mean, I have a good idea right now. I know what I'm gonna do. So that's where the Marines are right now. Now it's back in the hands of the Soviets, and he can pick a theater. Let's see, where are we going today? Is it going to be Eastern Asia or is it going to be Eastern Europe?
Let me check something. I think this should work out.
Berlin blockade. Ooh.
Disarmament.
I win.
You win.
You didn't read the focus.
Yeah, I know, but it has to be.
Yeah, but the fact is that now for the first turn it doesn't happen, and for the second turn it's also not going to happen because the unit's not going to be deployed, it's going to be in reorganization. Which means you just lost yourself 2 turns of finance.
Okay.
Beep beep beep. Puts unit back. But yeah, all in all, the game is slightly difficult to learn Bokian, so I can understand if you don't understand everything. We're working on upgrading and improving on the tutorials a lot. But they still need a moment before they're all the way done.
Does a fighter need to be in the same region to protect
Yes.
against? Okay.
A fighter can only protect the region which he's sitting in.
Right.
Unless it's unless you're doing nuclear strikes, in which case they can also protect a little bit around them.
So I can't retreat this unit.
No,
Okay. So
that guy is
basically-
stuck there.
Yeah, he's done for basically.
Yeah.
Alright, well. He's gonna have to take one for the team then.
You're gonna take a buff? Alright, man. Enjoy your buff. Should I do? What should I do? Don't need him right now, so I'll leave him. I could actually get him.
I'm gonna take a break. Yeah, sorry. Quick break if you don't mind.
Sure, I'll
Be right
consider
back.
my options in the meantime.
Cool.
So I'll let this go up by 3 for the next timeline. I'm gonna let this go up by 1 for the next timeline, which will then allow me to do 2 of these without going to mismanagement. Then I'm gonna go ahead and do this one. I have a lot of people support, so I'm considering if I want to do a non-focus move. Definitely not going to need this one too early. I was considering it, but it's rather expensive. I didn't get enough military alignment yet. Should probably just check what he's up to. That's a really low chance. Yeah, it was pretty obvious that that's not going to happen. Right, so the Soviet player isn't here right now. He's taking a short break, but I can just consider my options. I'm muted so he doesn't hear this at all. So the problem I have is I already mismanaged twice. Because there's 2 more turns for this. No, there's 1 more turn for this. This is the last turn. Which is going to put my finance down to 0. Which means I'm not going to get another mismanagement. But I want to go ahead and I want to find out with the espionage what he's up to. Which will give me 1 finance back, so it's not going to be too much of an issue. But I need to know what he's up to in terms of the military power. Because if he has an equal amount or even a higher amount of nukes, then I need to just set up some fighters to stop his bombers. Because I doubt that he currently has the nuclear missile strikes, because at the beginning he would have needed to research intercontinental and nuclear weapons at the both time, which he did, which is why he's not even picking up the human space. So there's a few options. Welcome back.
Thank you. So have the guys left doing your radiator?
I don't know. I have my door closed and I have my shadows down. I would have to go out and ask the others if they've left by now. But I think they've left by now because I no longer hear hammering.
Right.
It's almost 10 p.m. I would probably just throw them out by now.
Yeah. It's a bit silly they're still... they were even still around.
I mean, yeah, the joke is that they're still around, but the joke is that they're still around 7 hours after there was said, like, we're gonna come here, and it's gonna take 30 minutes. It's like 7 hours late.
Yeah.
Like, why are you still here?
Yeah, it's insane.
I actually want to know, did you even get the Brotherhood and Unity focus this game? Did that pop up for you?
Which one is that?
It's Titus.
No.
Alright.
No, didn't get that.
It's one of the strongest ones, so I was considering, like, did you even get it? Because I saw multiple focuses earlier, which were Western Europe, but you didn't pick them. Like, that's a very high chance that that might have been Tito.
No, I don't think I had it.
Alright.
Let me just... So I'm actually in front of infantry.
The enemy have sent their first man into space.
Expect it. I want to kick back a bit until you're done.
Yeah, it should be
Any minute now.
any minute now.
Any minute now, he's gonna have his focus finished.
Hey. Wow. Ah, still not done. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Oh, he does
yeah.
not.
Yeah. There.
Oh, he does. Alright. Oh, for fuck's sake. Alright. What do we have? What do we have? So, this one's okay-ish. This one looks nice. This one looks very nice. That is exactly what I want. That is exactly what I want. Oh, yeah. Alright, boys, I hope you're ready because we're going to Africa.
Disarmament.
Going to Africa. I'm bringing Toto, by the way.
What's that?
Toto.
Oh yeah. I was actually thinking of a song by them.
Of course. That's the song that everybody has in their mind when they hear the word Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Go straight to that song. What am I going to do?
I don't know what you're going to do. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Ho Chi Minh is still around.
You see?
Yeah, of course. It's 1961 and you haven't used him, so of course he's still around. Usually he's dead in the first timeline because the Soviet player immediately uses all of his power before he loses it.
Well. Yeah.
There we go. Ho
There
Chi
we
Minh's
go.
ability. Usually want to make sure that you keep Ho Chi Minh used in the first timeline, because then you have 4 power points, which means you can take 2 regions from 1 to controlled. And usually the best places to are that is to do it in Burma and the East Indian Bengali region, or the East Indian Bengali zone and Sri Lanka, because then you basically build a wall and you can take over Western India, Pakistan and Afghanistan whenever you get a focus there. Which gives you a lot of influence really quickly, and the Americans cannot contest it. Because deployment down there is atrociously expensive. I mean, let me just quickly check. How much would it cost me to deploy? Yeah, actually, no, it's 1.95. Oh, yeah, right, because I have a convoy running. But without the convoy, this would be at least twice as expensive.
Let me just check the logistics button.
Please, by all means. Go ahead. I'm not
So
stopping
what can
you.
I do to? I can't really deploy another surface vessel, right? To make deployment in Africa cheaper.
Did you already deploy some in Iran and in the Caucasian zone?
Oh yeah, I disarmed. So I should put one.
Yeah, you
back.
should put that back. Which means now it should be a little bit cheaper for you to deploy around Ethiopia and such.
Yeah, is there anything I can do?
Africa and South America are usually America's playgrounds. Once you get India, China and the Middle East. And Europe being contested. Because it's just not that easy for you to get there.
Yeah, so it's still 4 turns.
You can see in the top left corner how many turns I have. So since it was just saying you have 4 turns, and it was my pick, I have 3 more turns, you have 3 more turns.
Right. Okay.
Unless either of us had an event which says gains more turns. But here's the scary thing, which is probably gonna interest you.
Our first object into space. Our first animal into orbit. We have sent our first man into space. We have completed our first rendezvous in space.
Wow.
Hey Mate, you don't know how this is fair if a dev is beating up the community? This is fair, because there's a change been made to the game which I didn't even get to play yet, because this is something that's new for both of us. So, the internet died again. How are you here? Liar! Liar! Get him, people, he's lying! No, Mateo, how you doing? Other than your internet dying. Yeah, welcome to America. The place where I randomly just pull a space rendezvous. Within the fraction of 1 second.
Yeah, you really.
So basically, I sent a satellite, a guinea pig, and a human at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, the human was the person that was piloting the one vessel. The animal was piloting the other. The satellite is remote controlled, and then the human and the animal did the space rendezvous.
Yeah.
They met in space.
So was it a dog or an ape?
No, a guinea pig.
Ah, okay.
Remember, guinea pigs are really, really smart, and I'm almost 100% sure they can definitely fly. Like,
Yeah.
Why should my guinea pig not be able to pilot a rocket? Like, come on. Can your guinea pig not fly a rocket?
Anything can fly, really.
Yeah.
It's the controlled landing that's the difficult part, of course.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, everything goes up. It's just a question how it's going to come down. All of them go up somehow. But no, Mateo, this is actually not that unfair, because I'm playing on a handicap a little bit. Because I'm not super rushing everything. Like, I'm not min-maxing everything to the highest amount. I'm still sitting here from time to time thinking, like, what should I be doing? But I'm not sitting here, like, 20 minutes and considering my options.
I am, though.
Yeah, he is.
And then after 20 minutes, I make the wrong move.
Even though Gellert's in the room and he's like, hey, you can tell me what you want to do, and then I can recommend to you if it's a good option or not, and then just, like, proceeds to do it without asking, and then, like, this was a bad move. Oh. Oh, no.
Well, it makes for an informative stream. This is the way you shouldn't be playing.
How not to invade the Soviet Union? Alright, let's see what you're up to.
That's upper, at least one.
Sub-Saharan Africa. Alright, boys, we're going back to Africa.
Yeah. Who doesn't like Africa?
Sure, you can get just here and not here at the same time. Somehow, maybe I'm breaking the physics with this. I don't know. I mean, feeling like breaking physics today. Not sure about it. I mean, feeling pretty rich today. Might invade Africa. I don't know why you picked Africa again, because it's expensive for you to deploy shit, still. Actually, no, dude, the convoying isn't written down for me properly, so deployment cost is only 1 for you. Because the convoy is not taken into account for me.
Why is it not? Is that
Because I don't know about it.
Ah, right.
If I knew you had a convoy there, it would actually take it into account. We're like, hey, yeah, we know there's a convoy there, so reduce cost by so much. My internet is, at the moment, a cable running from my PC to my phone, with my phone connected to the internet. Using that. Oh yeah, you're using USB tethering. I used that for a while too, when my internet wasn't working properly. It's not the best idea to do it for a long term, specifically not when you're streaming or something, because if you're using Wi-Fi and such over the phone, It is very volatile. Even more volatile
The
if you
enemy
will
have
use remote
completed
data.
Their first rendezvous in space. The enemy have completed their first orbit of the moon.
I'm also gonna quickly use a break. I'll be right back. So,
Yep.
think through what your options are.
Sure.
Alright, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Let's see, what did you decide to do? Space Race, Moon Orbital, and Space Rendezvous. Yeah, I remember that one. And then you deployed over there. Alright. Gotta pester my ISP techs tomorrow, so like they just give me a new modem. The problem with ISPs, no matter where you are, they usually don't want to give you a modem for free. They want you to pay for it.
Ooh.
I'm saying immediately that was too obvious.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I can do about that now, right?
So for people to understand what just happened. He deployed a unit in Ethiopia, which is what he did in the turn where I was using the bathroom. Then he consolidated Ethiopia, which means I knew that the next move he's gonna do is he's gonna move through Sudan into Zaire, because he can't go anywhere else. Kemati's blocking this path. I knew that he's gonna be here. I'm not going to waste Mbutu on it. So I just threw Chombe at him. And Chombe has 2 points, which one puts it reorganized, the other one expels it. Which means it's enough to complete contest and kill his unit. I'm going to it here. If you had a long cable. Longer cables often bring more issues with it. So the longer the cable, the worse it gets, which is why people often tell you, if you have a USB connector For the love of God, don't connect the USB multiple lanes long. So if you have, let's say, a USB cable, which is supposed to make the cable longer, it's a bad idea to use multiple of those. It's really bad idea. Because the connection gets really bad. And with internet, it's even more important. Unless you're using glass fiber or high-speed cables to begin with, you should be really careful if you do this or not. It's not a good idea. I don't know why you would waste your power on that, but sure. Again, this is the problem with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is usually not that great in range, but I explained to you how you can increase the range. So it's either move the way the router is facing, which oftentimes actually changes the way the Wi-Fi travels through the room. Make it just straight up aim at your door. Or into a hallway at your door. I mean, sure. I don't know what I'm trying to achieve. Or just go ahead and get yourself a repeater. Do I want to? Nah.
Disarmament.
I'm going over here. Oh, sets people alignment. I got the good one. Basically, if he had any people alignment, I just set it to 0. And if he had any people support interests, that's also set to 4. Which means that's a hardy bullet. That one hurts a lot if you get that one thrown at you.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Cost the same as a new modem? I would just go for a standard modem. Most of the modems don't have too much fancy stuff and you can just get away with just put a normal one up. It should be fine. So the thing is, I have a lot of troops around Africa and the Middle East, so you're not getting that. Unknown unit detected in East German Baltic zone. He's deploying a tank there. Okay. Don't know why, but have a great day. You know what? I'm gonna do this before this actually expels. There you go. Ireland's also mine now. Seven device set at a time. My sister, for some ungodly reason, has to use a phone, a tablet, and laptop. The thing is, every single router is not going to have a problem with like up to 10 devices. Hardly any router with a decent Wi-Fi system in it, even the older ones, have a problem with multiple devices. Like, I have a standard one, which is just sitting here in my room. We have a standard one, which is just sitting over in the other room. That thing has, by default, at least 12 phones connected to it. Like 12 to 15 phones at normal, maybe some laptops and some PCs. So there's a physical metric ton of stuff connected to it. It doesn't matter if it's a bad one. They can still, they still have no problem with this. They will be able to deal with this. Well, what is good that I decided to pick that thing over an island, so that when we do go over to Western Europe now, I can still keep my units. Also, just so you know, you don't need to actually click that one. You could also go ahead and delay if you don't want to do this one.
Yeah, I know, but I like the alignment.
Disarmament.
Sure. Let's try this one more time. What do we have? Alright, he did buy it. Alright, he does have it. No wonder you're so slow in the stuff if you have nuclear research 4. But that is not looking too healthy. No money, still 4 people like I said earlier. Here I can actually show to everybody why it's so important for me to go ahead and deploy all of these convoying systems over in East America, because you see, down to the fact that I have these 3 ships deployed right here, that's the physical reason why if I want to deploy anything in Europe it's completely free. Like, I can deploy in Svalbard, free. Norway, free. Germany, free. Spain, free. Portugal, free. France, free. It's pretty free. Doesn't cost anything. That's why it's so important to actually get all the convoys running. Because it can get so cheap. Like, physically and retardedly cheap at this point already. If I just check how much my convoy costs down here, I can almost deploy down here for free. Look at the price for Africa. It's almost zero. Deploy here for free. It's really nice to do. And if you compare that with the Soviets, it's hell of expensive for him. Like deployment right here, that is free. Not nice. Good result. My influence grows. But I have to say, I expected you to really just shift over and go into Asia more when you got just pushed out of Europe so much. But you did stand your ground. You have no idea what's going on, but it looks good. Saturday's the game? Yeah, Saturday's the Vicky game. So if you want to know what's going on, basically, blue is what's mine, orange is what is him. The blue tank is my land unit, the blue ships are my naval units. This is a leader that's under his control, and there's a leader under my control. You basically look, everything that's orange is bad, everything that's blue is good, and for him it's the other way around. I have a bunch of things I can do. I can do decisions, which will pop up from time to time. They're basically like events in Hoi and so on. Then I have just like policies which I can do, which are... No, actually this is decisions, the others are events. Which, if I have a requirement which is met, I can press the button and it does something. Most of them I actually don't want to do because it's like, hey, you lose military alignment and you gain 8 victory points. They're like late game, you can see here. I gain victory points and I lose alignment. Right now the most important thing is to just continuously build up the resources because we're still at a point in the game where they still net profit. So as soon as we get to like 71, it's no longer profitable to do anything in terms of resources. So I just want to continue doing resource stuff right now. And building influence. I like to use this one. It's basically just like with card games. You build up early on. Until you get a power spike. And at the power spike, you just demolish your enemy. In this case, it's just we both build up influence. We both build up interests early on. When our power is high enough, we just use our trump card and we win the game in one fell swoop. Which is why early game, it's really calm. It's always really calm. And then when the last timeline comes around, where we both know it's going to be the end, that's just where it ends. In this case, I can see next timeline, which means just because the next timeline hit, I got a bunch of stuff. Kimati is gonna, which actually, didn't understand why you didn't keep using Kamati. We disarmed Africa multiple times, which means you could have every time increased Kamati's power again. By doing rebellion. Excuse me?
Wow, this is
Gellert?
oh mo.
Yeah, that looks really I'm just gonna be rude. That does not look fair. Like, what the hell, Gellert? So we actually had a discussion once where we said there's a requirement that at least 3 focuses have to be of either side available at once. Yeah, that's really fair.
And this is why I lost the game.
I mean, the game is good, don't get me wrong. It's just like, I don't know what the fuck this is. This is a bunch of focus that I've already done. I already had the free trade agreement. I already had the Island of Freedom.
Is Gellert still around?
He's not in here right now. I pinged him. I'm like, Gellert, how the bloody heck is this at all fair? And they're all good focuses. Like, it's not even that they are trash. They are all good focuses. Like, every single one of them is good. It's like, this one, gain 3 elites, gain 15% on all of my intelligence agency. This is gain 3 elites and gain a bunch of bonuses on counterterrorism, espionage and such. Gain 1 finance for each influence in the Thai Malaysian zone. Gain 3 influence and also in 1 Soviet-controlled dominated region in South Africa. Gain 2 influence and sets people to 7. Gain 1 influence in Eastern Europe for each influence above 2 in West Berlin. Sets people to 6. Gain 1 finance and influence in South America for every 3 Annual Doomsday. So this is actually really good for me, all of this. This is very based. I'm gonna have to make a call to the base department if you don't mind. Yeah, I'm just gonna do American's backyard then. This is very based.
We have completed our first orbit of the moon.
Joke's on you, the game was rigged from the start.
Yeah.
The game was rigged from the start.
I was never gonna win.
Or more military. This is gonna go into yeah, not fun moments. But hey, this is why the game is still being actively developed on, because this is something that shouldn't be happening. Damn. That's hella fun. Alright, this is something I'm not going to say out loud, so he doesn't hear it,
so
but
where's this focus going on?
I've reached the maximum amount of this mansion. I can physically not mismanage anymore, except for the one time in finance. Everything else I have to keep balanced, because everything else I've already mismanaged. I don't remember exactly how many times. Which means if I mismanage anything, specifically finance, I cannot mismanage finance anymore. Finance would lead to an instant collapse of my government if I mismanage that one again. So I have to be careful from this point. This is Mexico. Invading Mexico? I'm not invading Mexico, it's a friendly visit. It's very, very friendly.
The Mexicans should have built a wall.
No. No. No, Matej, you have to understand, in this game, mismanaging is actually something you have to do on purpose. Because it gives you free power. So let's say, as you can see here, I used more government as I had available, which means it goes to 0. what happens is that if my government or anything is at 0, it goes into what's called, as you can see here, mismanagement. You see, dangerous opposition. And when the next round comes around, it's gonna give me an option like, hey, would you like to click button A, which solves the mismanagement, but it costs victory points, or button B, which means you just don't do anything. As you can see here. I can pay 2 victory points, but I get free government, which is huge. I want free government. As you can see here, this was also bad. I lose victory points, which I don't care too much about, because 2 victory points isn't much. But I just gained free influence. Like, I gained free government. And with the other things, it's the same. Oh, it went to 0? It doesn't matter, I just got free more. Here, money went to 0, it doesn't matter, just get more money. But you can only do it so often. If you do it more than a few times, then it's like, hey, people are just kind of done with your shit. And yeah, how's this mismanagement? If you mismanage the people of the Soviet Union 4 times, you get an event where an angry, riotous mob decided to charge at the leader during a speech, and the cameraman was ordered to film the beautiful sky and sing a song over the cries of the leader being torn apart, so that the people of the Soviet Union would not hear this happening. So, mismanaging actually can have some interesting outcomes, but in this game, it is something you have to do. It is going to be necessary for you to mismanage, otherwise you're going to fall behind. I'll tell you immediately, you need to make sure that you don't do too much, and you need to keep some in the backline. So, if I, let's say, go ahead and mismanage 4 times at the beginning of the game, and I gain huge advantage in finance, if I need it late game, I'm just sitting there like, I don't have anything to do. And if I now go into mismanagement, like in something that happened last time, where it was like, hey, whenever there's a unit in Eastern Poland, lose 1 finance, and it put me into mismanagement due to that, I have no fallback mechanic. This is why you need this mismanagement fallback mechanic, because you can't get it back otherwise. Welcome back, Max. You would have done that if you were mismanaged. I mean, why don't we do this real life? Like, just manage everything. Like, look at this. You just get free money. Like, I don't need victory points IRL. I can just tell my gut. I just mismanage my finance, and then they're just gonna give me more. See, problem solved. Economics 101. How to solve world hunger. Just give out more bread than you have. And then when you go into mismanagement, you just give them victory points, and then you get more bread. Doesn't that sound amazing? Come on, you have to tell me that. Yeah, you have to agree that sounds amazing, right? Free bread.
Nothing wrong with free bread.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just bread, but...
I mean, yeah, but it's free.
Yeah. But you can't live off bread alone.
Of course you can. How do you think the Romans did it? Remember,
Well,
bread
where
and
are the Romans
circuses.
now.
I mean, they did for a while, then the bread ran out. You see, that was the
Yeah.
problem. They had no more bread. Therefore, you can survive on bread, but
Maybe
if the
they
bread
had-
runs out...
They had too much bread.
No, they didn't have any more bread. That was the problem. Remember, they took some people took over the Algerian and Tunisian regions where all the wheat was being produced, which means there was no more wheat to be exported into Rome to feed the masses. Wasn't also wine? No, the mantra was bread and circuses. The mantra of the Romans was bread and circuses. It wasn't wine and circuses or wine and bread. It was bread and circuses. But it's also always a funny thing which I try to explain, because if you look at the system of the Romans, it was actually a capitalistic system with a socialist background. Because the wealthy were the people paying for the bread and for the circuses, and the poor people were receiving it so that they would shut up and not riot. Which basically means this could be considered as, yeah, you had some extensive social reforms, but you also had the capitalists, the wealthy people paying for it. What do you want in Chad? Get out, Chad. Roman Empire collapsed. We're on top because of the bread, and they fall apart because of bread. Don't forget Slaver. I mean, that was a different thing, and they're actually mostly removing that in some parts because they realized, like, hey, this is, you know, like, just, like, not cool. It took a long time, but hey. Humanity got over it and realized this is a bad thing. And as long as people learn that it's a bad thing to do, I will say, well, history did work out well for us because people realized it was a mistake, learned from it, and stopped doing that mistake. Really love that Imperator, though. It's a game you want to try on. It's not that great. Well, so I did get a free copy. It's not that great. I don't recommend it to buy it. If you get your hands on a free copy, sure, go ahead and try it, play a bit. But it's not worth the current price. I didn't like it too much. Maybe they're gonna do it like most of
for I think a year or something, but even on sale, I just don't really like the reviews.
Yeah. What I recommend is that you wait, because there's only one way the game can go from here. It's basically the bottom, which means if they invest more, the game can only go upwards. Alright, I'm gonna give you a standpoint here, because you delight, never mind.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, like, you can just tell me which one you wanted to click at, and I would tell you what it does. Because it's not fun for you to not being able to understand what's going on.
Alright, well.
I want CK3 on sale. Talking about PDX. I mean, yeah, but we're talking about PDX, which means the games actually do get better when the time goes on, so... That sounds fun.
Disarmament.
You remember March of the Eagles? Oh god, I've seen that stuff. It's actually not that bad if you add 1 or 2 mods into it, which actually make the game rather playable. The problem with the game is just the game span is too short. Which means whenever somebody tries to play it, you don't have enough time to actually understand what's going on or do much. Because every other Paradox game has at least a larger time span that it works with. I mean, Wiki works with 100 years. EU4 works with, what is it, 300 years? You start in 1444 and you end in like 18 something, so it's almost 400 years that you have in...
1821, I think.
Yeah, 1836 is when Wiki starts, so you end somewhere before that. So at that point you have about 400 years. With CK2 it starts in like 600 and you play until like 1200, so you have like 600 years. With Hoi you only have 4 years, but since you're using an hour system instead of a day system, it actually stretches the game out more. Because a day is like, you know, 24 times the time. So it actually makes the game a lot longer with that. Whilst March of the Eagles, whilst it also has an hour system, it still feels rather short because you don't just annex a person in one war. It's a weird thing. So, I wouldn't say that that's an amazing game. But again, I haven't played it too much, so I'll abstain mostly from it. Just gonna put it to 8. It's gonna be 7, 5. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If it goes too far, I can always do this. If it goes too low, I can always do this. Why could I not enact this? Oh, because I've already done this. Never mind. I was like, why can't I enact this? Yeah, sure. I've already done this timeline. looks good. I'm gonna put... Let's see, I need to reduce it by 1, which means... Where do I want to put it? Can't put anything in Berlin, obviously. You confused me when I'm talking about mods for March of the Eagles. Yeah, no, there are actually mods for March of the Eagles, which makes the game somewhat playable. You can have a look at it. It's actually quite fun. There is actually mods for it. You know what? I need to reduce this by 1, so that's happening. Operation Cylinder failed.
American Navy placement.
Ooh. Yeah, no, I understand that one when you mean like 400 euros for EU4. Because DLCs. But this is how many games have actually been moving towards, where it's like DLC heaven. Many games have done that before, just in a different way, and it's often being accepted. It's just in the case of Paradox, people are just like, well, you have to expect that this is the way it goes, and again, people expect and accept it. They know that, oh, it's going to be a new game, it's going to be not great at the beginning, and then they're going to add like 20 DLCs, you're going to have to purchase them, then the game's actually going to be pretty decent. I mean, Paradox also is going to have the hammer coming back down on them. Eventually, all the fans are going to move away, but you'll see how it happens. It's just, it's going to happen here, it's going to happen there. Eventually, something's going to come around. Let's see, what do we have here? Coordinate with allies to strike at the heart of the Soviet Union. Return the favor, lose to government place on influence. Force their hand, gain elites, military, doomsday clock, lose people support. How do I want to piss the people off? Because the Soviet Union has been doing a plot within my territory.
No,
you know what? I'm gonna press this button. Because that allows me to press this button.
We have successfully landed a man on the moon.
Which then allows me to press this button. Which then allows me to press this button. Oh, that failed. Never mind. If you want to play EU4 right now, it's pretty simple. Just find one of your friends who most likely has all the DLCs and just play with him. That's easy. That's the easier way. But let's move on from that. But yeah, Mate, from what you see from the game, what do you think about it? It's your turn again because you got an extra turn.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what I mean with, if you saw the event earlier, where you had the option to gain 1 extra turn and pay something up. So this is what happened. Since you chose the extra turn, but I chose something else, you ended up with said extra turn, whilst I didn't.
Right.
I decided against it.
Ooh, I have a bit of a mismanagement problem right now.
Did you mismanage that heavily?
Well, I have both elites and government.
Alright, then understand one thing. It's only going to give you 1 mismanagement event per turn. Which means you're not going to get the government and the elites at the same time. So what you can do is, if you know that you can pay off the elites somehow, then just pick the option, don't do anything, and drop the elites into something which is worthwhile. But since you cannot guarantee that you're actually going to get rid of them, I recommend drop the elites away, just like throw them away into a corner, you don't just forget about them. Pretend they're not there. Which is the button where you just lose 2 elites and lose some victory points. And then you just buy a leader. So you don't even get the event for government mismanagement.
Okay, yeah.
You can leech DLCs off me. Usually when I want to play DLCs, it's either going to be with you or it's going to be with Shadow. Maybe even with Magnus at the beginning, but we'll see about that. It seems complex and nice. I would give it a go if I understood more, so give me a guide. We don't actually have a full guide because the game just... We change a lot of things here and there. But there will be an active guide coming out eventually, which I will probably be the person to work on. We'll see about that. But I'll be doing some things here and there. You can ask me some questions. I actually have a channel for it on my server. Lennon, Max, and me actually own the game. We gave out some copies back when we released the first DLC for it. And we can see about it. Four, which is gonna move you down to 3. Plus 6, which means I need to reduce it by 2. 1. Alright, that should be fine then.
Oh, guys, this is. I saw your screenshot. I was laughing so hard about it.
Yeah, I told him, like, that's not fair.
Disarmament.
Like,
Totally
how is
fair.
that fair?
It never was fair.
The game was rigged from the start. Peng's funeral.
Oh,
I could just walk away. Okay. It's like, hey boys, we have to talk about, like, to end this crisis and, like, how to funeral. I can just walk away. It's like, yeah, no, I'm out of here. Alright, boys, peace.
Well,
Peace.
well, you kind of have a lot of experience with the game. So let's so Bojack, take me through what did I miss so far in terms of the strategy? Where where do you see that your strategy has sort of been, and where have you taken things in terms of the overall goal?
Our bomber commands can deliver ballistic
well, I'd
strikes.
say it's a bit difficult for me to even talk about a goal. I'm usually just reacting to what Lem does, and well, learn a
So,
lot.
the thing that he has a problem right now is that he was always ahead in victory points, which means I always had first turn. And then he was trying to play very reactive, but he could never get a grip on anything. So whenever he was like, alright, I'm gonna do this, I already knew what he was doing. So I had a situation earlier where he could only move his tank in Africa to one spot, and I knew exactly what spot that was. Which means the second he moved it in, even though I couldn't see it, I was like, alright boys, Chombe time, and blow it up. So a problem that you definitely have is that you will need to understand the mechanics of the game a little bit more. Specifically, where what leader spawns around which time. As well as policies and intelligence missions which can become available. You can do yourself something simple, like something that I've been doing, where I basically have a small list which reminds me, like, this is timeline so-and-so, which means, oh, Operation Cold Feet, Operation Stargate, Operation Radio Song. They are available right now. And I also have a cross list where it's like, I've mismanaged finance once.
Yeah.
I've mismanaged finance once, military once, government once. It's just like, have like a little spreadsheet that you can just use for something like that. And you can then afterwards realize, like, wherever am I doing things wrong.
Well, and also on the development side, I mean, if you guys feel that you need more of that, then of course we should include that in the game. So it makes it easier for you to have an overview of where things are sort of heading.
I mean, I would definitely be pro at just adding a simple mechanic, like if I click and hold on my government, it says like government blah blah blah. USA, and then like in a bracket, 3 mismanagements, or just like as an information, how many times I've mismanaged it. So I know that like 3 out of 5, I know I have 2 more until I go bankrupt or something. So I just don't have to write it down myself. It just reminds me like, hey, you've already done this 4 times. Do you really
exactly.
want to try
that's
one?
that's exactly what I'm pointing to. Like getting that feedback from the community, from you guys. It's really valuable, and we can include that. Those are the types of elements where we can help out and make the play more easy in the sense of getting the overview. I also think the strategy that you're playing, Bojack, which is sort of trying to react, it's a very good first strategy, and you're definitely on the right path, because basically Lem's strategy is reacting to you. So you see, when you're not doing an offensive, you're not pushing forward, you get to sort of somewhat of a stalemate situation, and that is because that's why you split basically all theaters down the middle.
Yeah.
And that's because you're both aimed for the long game. You have increased, you're both invested in alignment, you've increased influence, and you've sort of split up the world. And then that means sort of you get into a situation where you both want the other one to be the one to push first, and then try to exploit that.
Yeah. Well, I have to say these games are really informative. In terms of, compared to playing against the AI, that's you're not really pushed to try different things.
Yeah, when you play against the AI, it can be a good way of testing out where you can build up certain elements and certain strategies. Like, for example, if you play the US, there is a strategy where you can build up a very good convoying triangle. Do you know what I speak? I'm
basically, Bojack, you can look that later in my stream. What I've been, so for you to understand, is what's basically I've done this in my game here, and the principle is that if you have 3 destroyers on the eastern coast and then 3 destroyers on the west coast, it basically eats up most of your destroyers, but you have enough financial alignment to just buy a few more if you really need them. But the thing is, I could deploy the entirety of Europe with the exception of Spain completely for free. I don't even need anything.
You can even get Spain. So
yeah, but the thing is, the principle behind it is, since I have everything in Eastern American coast, I can deploy in Europe for free. It's like, oh, we just disarmed. Doesn't matter. I can just put the units straight into Germany again, and it doesn't cost anything. Oh, Mate, come on, we're about to finish. This is like the last timeline before the victory condition.
Yeah, and the point that Lem is trying to say here is that you can do the same on the Soviet side. So by building up these triangles of convoying with surface fleets, you can build up these essential pathways where you can get troops back in again.
The simplest I explained before, the simplest I explained at the beginning was the Caucasian zone in Iran, because that gives you access to the Middle East for cheap. Because that means It's like, hey, it wants to go from Central Russia, then it goes to the Caucasian zone, cost is 0, then it moves into Iran, cost is still 0, and then it goes from Iran into Turkey where it's at 0.8, and then it adds another 0.6 for the Levantian zone. And if you also then put one into Central Turkey, it's like, hey, you can deploy the entirety of the Middle East completely for free.
Yeah.
So in essence, you're doing exactly what the Soviet military leadership was doing during the Cold War. So you're building up these, because that's what they tried to do out from the Black Sea into the Middle East, and down into through well, they didn't get to keep Iran, so they lost Iran. But that's what they tried to do through Afghanistan, and then down the coast. And then, of course, that's what China is doing now in the South China Sea. Trying
They
to
want
build up the sea.
more naval access, which isn't, you know, locked in the Black Sea behind the Bosporus, and stuff that isn't blocked behind the Danish Straits.
So when I was looking at designing the game, I really wanted to capture these strategic elements in the world, in the globe, and basically how that can be used in real life, and how that can be harnessed in a strategy game where you sort of have the same you battle for the same space in terms of how you build up logistics, because the units are really important, but as you notice with all the units, it's the combination of the units and where the units are deployed and how long they are kept there that really is what matters.
Yeah.
So getting a deployment, so for example, just because the United States has had troops in Iraq for, you know, a decade, it doesn't mean that they have gained a lot of influence there. It's about what you do with them that actually counts. And so in the game, I wanted to capture that because this was also the case during the Cold War. And it's different compared to, you know, World War II, where you invaded a country and then that country surrenders, and then sort of you get this dynamic that plays out, which is different compared to the Cold War, because that type of world ended after World War II, in particular because of the nuclear deterrence and the way that you can use now forces in a different way. Because you still have choke points in the world with the different straits. But what really matters in the modern world is how you manage those forces and how you build up influence around you.
Right.
One thing is the simplest is, in this game you realize that the Soviets will start with not that much territory. Like he explained at the beginning, you have little territory. And the Americans from the get-go of the game, they lack what is basically considered imperial overstretch. So if you look at the specific of the game, I have influence and territory everywhere. But I don't have any troops there to hold this territory. Which means what you want to do as the Soviets is, in the first 2 or 3 timelines, expand as quickly as you can and grab as much territory as you can get your hands on before I actually start fully locking you in. Just like they did with the doctrine, which was containment, making sure that the Soviets can't expand their influence. And the fact that I was able to just get the Suez early on, you realized yourself, it's difficult for you to get into Africa, which is what they did in real life. Since in real life they also took away Iran, it was difficult to do anything in the Middle East and in India. And since you don't have any good ports, South America as well as Asia are basically unreachable for you. The only thing you can do something in the game is we're around China and around India.
Yes,
so
because you notice he has Gibraltar and he has the Black Sea port with Turkey, the Dardanelles. So pretty much in this, Lem has played kind of historic, capturing those elements that really become chokeholds in terms of because you can't get out of the Black Sea. Well, you can get into the Med, but with Gibraltar closed, you can't really get out to South America, Central America. And so Lem didn't have to capture South America and Central America. Just closing you off from that means you can't do that either. So, and that's the policy of containment.
Yeah.
So it is about trying to get out of that. And of course, the question is, when you begin, is this going to be a short game or a long game? And then trying to capture and the same way cut off bits and pieces of land by doing so. So you don't want to overstretch, but you don't want to understretch either. So you want to get to a position where you capture enough not to be contained, but not too much so that you are going to have to get into dangerous situations where you basically can't hold the fort.
Right.
Basically, the simplest way for you to see it is you saw at the beginning of the game, you had these wonderful focus, which is like the Italian Communist Party, where it's like you press a button and it's instantly 2 points towards communism. But I also have buttons that if I ever reach control in a region, it will then flip to dominate it. So the Soviet playstyle is that you can randomly just get influence in regions, which can completely throw me over. But I, on the other hand, I have focuses that if I ever get myself really, really heavily entrenched, then I can just go ham. And let's quickly go to chat. So first of all, I'm not actually considered a dev. I'm a quality assurance personnel. And when does this end? Well, there's one more turn in this focus, and I'm almost certain we have 2 more focuses coming after that, unless we both delay, and then it's game. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer, sometimes it goes really fast. In this case, it just took a second more because we've been explaining things and then not really actively working around. I'm actually gonna do this and this. Yeah, there's full employment done. Let's see what we get next. What are you going to pick? No, Mate, we're basically ending the game soon. Like I said, it's just coming to a point that both of us slowed down slightly. So he's been looking for a way out of the situation, because in the current situation that he has, this is a checkmate. I am capable in the next, as soon as the next timeline starts, to end the game. Since
Well, it all depends on. Oh, sorry for interrupting you. Go on.
Yeah, no, since I have the deficit in victory points, and he has been pushing the advantage in victory points, I'm gonna have the first turn next game, next timeline, which means I can just press the button and instantly win, because this is the victory condition. I also have the military support for it and everything else, so right now he's basically looking for a way of getting out of this chokehold to trying to survive this. It's not always easy.
The question is his nuclear capacity. Where are you at in terms of nuclear? Can you?
We're equal.
Can you?
We're equal. I checked it just a moment ago. We're equal.
Okay.
So
You picked
basically, well, you can prevent.
He could force a draw, but I'm actually not sure if this is going to end in a draw, because he doesn't have a lot of people support, which means he's going to have huge drawbacks. So launching it might actually lead to an American victory.
Yeah, the question is, what kind of focuses do you have? Do you have anything that could reset your people? The people support. So you don't get a lot of people backlash for being the one to launch the first strike.
Right.
Because if you look, there are several things that go into the projected result. First, the number of victory points you have, and you have a lead there, 14. Then the next one is the surviving influence that's going to be on the map. And that is how much will survive. Currently, I think...
That's a huge bonus for me, because when all the nukes are accounted for, I would still gain a lead of plus 80 points. And then you would lose a huge backlash, which is 10 victory points lost for each people which you're missing.
Precisely.
And then, of course, any military units you destroy.
So it means if you max your people or gain as much people as possible, you can do that by, for example, converting some of the focuses if you have, or you do that by looking at some of the policies. Do you have anything that you can convert into more victory points that could be useful?
Mate is falling asleep.
Am I actually, so.
It's cool. I mean, if you want to end, then we can just move to the next timeline, or you could just pull the trigger.
We've come so far, so I really would like to.
Yeah, and finally, you also have the military casualties. If you can destroy enough enemy units, that also each unit, just as any destroyed unit during the game, otherwise, it grants you victory points. So one thing could be, for example, if your opponent hasn't disarmed,
we both disarmed.
But now you have. So you don't quite know how many units your opponent has.
I mean, we just had
Another,
full
but a
employment in
thing
North...
you could do is that if you have submarines, for example,
You don't,
researched,
you don't need to check because I can quickly tell you. We just did full employment in North America where I disarmed again. So there's nothing there. The feeder is empty.
but strategy-wise, that could be one thing. For example, if you place submarines in the Arctic will those units will not be destroyed in the nuclear apocalypse. So if you have
He doesn't
units
have that
there,
tech. He doesn't have that tech.
yeah.
So basically what he's talking about is the fact that there's technology down here that is the ballistic missile submarine. If you have a unit in submarine in the Arctic, it can launch nukes on its own and it can't be destroyed. And nuclear ballistic missiles cannot be shot down. Whilst if I have a bomber like this guy who's trying to come in and I have a fighter available, that fighter will shoot down the bomber and prevent the nuke from dropping. Whilst if it is a ballistic missile, then you cannot shoot it down. That the missile.
Well, there are some missions that can discover submarines in the Arctic.
Yeah,
missions.
cold feet and such can force it out, but the thing is, it can only force out so many, and even then, the enemy can just put them back in.
Yeah, so it depends. So you need to know when to do it, and basically you should do it before an attack if you now want to go forward with an attack.
Yeah. So you have the options right now. It's either you pull the trigger and end it, or you don't, and we continue. Also,
but that
just
would
keep the
most
victory
likely
points.
then lead to victory for the. It depends on what policies you have available, of course.
He used most of it just a second.
I try to use as much of them as I still have available.
The thing is, I can tell you immediately, it's already calculated because I just did espionage, which means I know how many nukes you have, and I know that you don't have a lot of launch positions right now. Even if all of your nukes go out, I would still have about 80 victory points surviving. Which means I actually gain victory points if you were to launch. I would gain about 60 points. From the current standpoint, according to my intelligence. This does not take into effect any units I don't see, which means your casualties that you might lose, as well as the fact that I don't know how much people backlash you have. Which means if you were to lose like 4 or 3 units and you also have backlash, then that's an easy victory for me.
Well, you might not win. You might still get mutual defeat.
Like I said, I don't know how much backlash he has. Because if I take everything into account,
that's exactly.
Then it would end at about 40 victory points in my favor.
Yeah. Now we're having the same discussion that basically Kennedy and Khrushchev did, right? When they were looking at the Cuban Missile Crisis. Should we or should we not?
My red button is a lot bigger than yours, Khrushchev.
Well, you should, Bojack, you should go with what Khrushchev said, you know, that we each have tied the knot of war onto the end of a rope, and as long as we're both pulling at each ends, that knot will just get tighter and tighter. And at some point, somebody has to cut that knot, and I don't have to explain to you what that means.
But my big red button is bigger than yours. At least can we be happy about one thing this game? Nobody shot Gandhi. Looking at you, Gellert.
Hey, Gandhi had it coming. Gandhi had it coming.
Yeah, of course. Bojack, for you to understand, there is a leader I can recruit in Western India right now, which is, I think, I forgot what his name. Yeah, no, I don't know. I was considering which relation that person has with the real Gandhi. I forgot what is the.
Gandhi.
Yeah, but like which relation he stands with him. She with him. That's what I was considering. I forgot how it's called in English.
So say again, Bojack. What were you saying?
Well, is that the leader that you have in the game? Is he or she even related to?
No, she was related to Nehru, which was a friend of Gandhi's.
Right.
Nehru became the prime minister.
But yeah, basically the person has the second name Gandhi, and in one game I was like, Gellert, don't shoot Gandhi. You do not shoot Gandhi. Suddenly I look at the event log and like assassination on Gandhi failed. I'm like, you just shot Gandhi. Why would you do that?
I did no such thing.
You
I
did.
no such thing.
Just like the
No.
Soviets decided to give the butter, to give the soap over to Giap in Poland.
Yeah.
Gandhi was out walking the street, and an accident happened where she got, stuck by someone who had an umbrella with kurare. I mean, accidents. They happen all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Waifu? No, it's... I think actually this is one of the few female leaders. There's like also Margaret Thatcher. There's not that many female leaders, which actually happened about that time.
Benazir Bhutto also.
I mean, like, I'm just in general. Like, I'm also looking at Golda Meir. But then I'm just like looking, like, I have Pinochet, I have Macmillan, I have Schmidt, I have...
during the Cold
Mobutu,
War, there were a lot
Suharto, Marcos.
Yep.
There's very, very, very many men. But hey, it's how many turns do we have in this
definitely in
focus?
the modern era,
Right,
women
74.
have made more of an entrance now today. I mean, look at Angela Merkel, and you have.
I actually have to
Jacinda
ask because I
Ardern.
don't know. I'm too young for this. In which timeline did Thatcher come up again? Because I don't remember her in history class or anything. So like, which timeline does she show up again?
Who?
Margaret Thatcher.
She shows up in the 80s, I believe.
Yeah, it will be the 80s.
Yeah, here in office, 1979. Okay.
No, there weren't many. Late 70s is probably when she. I can check for you when she becomes available. But
Actually, I have to say, I've been looking for that spreadsheet. I'm physically unable to find which spreadsheet the leaders and such are on. Like, I've been looking through the files.
So timeline 7 is when she makes her entrance.
Timeline 7, alright, that's...
Yep.
That is next timeline. That is next timeline. So she will be available just before I nuke everything. I mean, what?
And Che Guevara.
Che Guevara? No. Niet.
I will survive. Hey.
Niet.
Oh, getting attacked. You should. You know what you should do with Che?
Tell me.
So you can cut off his. First, you can use him. I mean, he will die next turn, but you can use it to cut off at least one of the regions by taking away.
He wants you to take
Either-
to use the ability that you spend 2 influence to place 1 in. You spend 2 power to place 1 influence somewhere behind me. That's what he wants you to do.
Behind you.
Yeah, just like any of the free power regions that are just standing there. Because that basically cuts my supply line. That's a 4 region.
Ah!
Anyone but that.
The one
The single one you're not supposed to click.
Disarmament.
See, I'm tired.
Yeah, I noticed. Oh, nice. Click that button. And click that button.
But that one is a good one. So now you inverted your people. So if you spent your people, if you spent your people down to 0, and now you selected popular unity, your people power your people interest should be maxed. So now you could have launched nuclear war with that, you see? And you would have not gotten any negative bonus from the backlash.
Let's see what happens.
Oh, he's doing it, the madman.
Oh,
You've returned Pokeen. I think you have returned to the point where he's gonna press the button. He's pressing the big red button.
It's your turn. It's your turn.
I know.
What a turn of events, though, Bojack. That's
I
that's
expected
really well.
that. I expected that. I've been expecting you. Let's just get those
So now the
guys outta
question
here.
is, where have you guys placed your units?
Well, according to my map mode, that's a lot of blue. That's a lot of blue. Alright.
It says mutual minor defeat. Let's see.
I'm always saying that if the other person has to pull the trigger and nuke, then I'm taking that as a victory. If I'm not the person that has to pull the trigger, if I have the upper hand, then yeah, I instantly got 40 victory points just because you have so much backlash. Which means I actually have a really good shot at winning this.
Oh,
Why the
this is
fuck did
exciting,
Iceland... Why did Iceland instantly blow up? There's not a nuke that impacted.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no,
Guys,
my
this
nukes are landing in friendly territory. Yeah, my guys are nuking my own territory for some reason.
Oh. So,
No,
so,
I'm serious. My units actually just my own units just nuked the entirety of Europe. My own units are nuking me right now. I'm looking at it.
yeah,
No,
probably is.
I'm taking that as a victory. Like, that was BS there. My units nuked myself. But I'm still winning, so it doesn't matter. The preemptive strike. It's not a preemptive strike, he pulled the trigger.
That's really good. You see Somalia there. That's a good placement.
No, I'm still calling BS because my units just nuked me instead of the enemy. That's not fun, that's
But
just...
I-
that's a severe
Maybe I
bug.
infiltrated.
No,
No,
that
no,
doesn't
but
do
you
anything.
probably had units there.
No,
Because
no. There was no units in Britain, Southern Britain, Ireland, France, and Spain at the same time. Because my units
Mine
nuked
did.
everything, but I still win, so it doesn't matter.
There's always the next game.
But still, you can
And
look
if
in the
you lose
replay,
again,
they physically
then
nuked
there's
all
the
my
next
territory.
game.
My own units nuked
that's gonna
everything.
be interesting.
The button, he pressed the button and my units instantly blew up in Iceland. Because they nuked themselves. I'm calling BS on that one though. But
It
still,
was really close. It was
No, that was not close.
actually.
that was not
Yeah.
close.
It was
Again,
really
yeah,
closer. It was
It
really
was-
closer than the previous match.
Yeah, that's definitely.
And
Again, I'm still saying every single time, if my enemy is the person that has to pull the trigger, then I'm taking it as a victory.
no, I mean
Really
it.
close, man.
I mean, really, I gotta say, this is awesome, man. A good finish with popular unity there, and building up that strategy towards the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really gonna try again against the AI. See
I
if
mean, you can
get-
always just like try and contact me or Python. We're mostly always available for a game, specifically on the first days. You'll find me.
There will
Otherwise,
be a
I'll
quick patch also coming up already this evening, and then the dev diary will come up as we go. The quick patch is to fix an issue William mentioned because there is a tiny bug in for the AI, and the AI, of course, is not supposed to do what it did there. So that actually has been fixed, and there will be a patch coming up very shortly on that. It's just an error, and so the AI should be building up a solid strategy with the new patch up, and that's coming up just in about 30 minutes or so.
Sounds good. But yeah, on the last note, I will look into that thing because I can guarantee you the units shot themselves, which is not supposed to happen. Like, I'm gonna look at the replay again, and I'm still calling BS, but I can guarantee you they shot themselves. Anyway,
Well-
with that, I'm calling the stream off. It's been a wonderful evening, Bojack. Still fun to play against you. Hope you learned some stuff. Hope you found your
Definitely.
mistakes, and for the next time, you learn some more. But with that,
Yeah.
again, I thank
and-
everybody
and-
for coming over.
Yeah, and
And,
I also wanted to give my thanks to both you, Lem, and to Bojack. Bojack, what a terrific play, and I mean, for your second time on the stream, the improvement is humongous, and I think next time will be even more competitive. And you know, at some point in time. I hope you don't mind taking on and also playing some games. I would love to play some games with you as well, and I'm sure many in the community would love that as well. So what a fantastic
Okay, Gellert.
opportunity. And with that, like I said, the patch will be up, and if there's anything else, please write in the Discord.
Thanks,
We
guys.
will do. Again, I thank everyone for coming over. Bojack, Gellert was still a fun game. Bojack, next week I have it with Python, so we can look at maybe in 2 weeks again, or when we have some downtime. Otherwise, you can call me up. I'll see if I can put any time in. And with that, I wish everybody a wonderful evening. Thank you guys for coming over. Bokian and Mate, please, you can go to bed now. Have a wonderful evening, and goodbye.